Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I wholeheartedly offer whatever suits your time zone. And more importantly, it's important that I say Blue Morning because it is the Blue Morning show. I hope that everyone is doing well. I really do hope so. So today we're going to talk about the Martin Broughton consortium. Why are they so underrated? I don't know. Why do people not trust them that much to take good care of Chelsea Football Club? I really do not know. But today we'll look into it and talk about why they are the underdogs and why possibly they may actually be the best option to take the club, take good care of it, and not let it, go through this kind of situation again in the future. So, people, let's get into it. Yes, a blue morning to all the people in the house already. I see the guy, I see Phantom of Man in color saying that the guy will not be the beat winner. You never know. We're not there at the table. And a street beer, the queen has the queen of all streams. Nice to always see you in the chat. I hope you're doing well. I've missed you. You've not been here for a while. He said the Ricketts seem to be in the lead. I'm not sure about that. I can't trust anything. I think why it just the whole thing just seems as if the Ricketts are in the lead because they're the ones that are the most vocal. They've made the most noise. That doesn't necessarily mean they are in the lead. And I have here Tobago saying Tobago saying good morning, blue morning to you, Tobago. How are you doing? I do hope that you're doing well. Again, nice to see you. And hit the like button, people, says Tobago, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. That is very important to us. When you like the video, it triggers the YouTube algorithm and pushes the video to even more people. Tobago says the sale of the club is hitting up now. I will be happy with either owner, but not the Ricketts. I think, honestly, I've done my research, and I think I prefer the Martin Broughton group for obvious reasons. Pierre Kakari, nice to see you here, brother. I don't know if I sent you the link on Twitter. If not, I'll go check again and do it again. Pierre, blue morning to you. I haven't heard from you in a while. I hope all is well with you, but I understand we're all busy and bills don't pay themselves. So yeah, first things first, Coachila, check your DM. I will do that in a bit. True Blues. Yep, True Boss, he says, the Queen says herself. Good afternoon, team at Chelsea. This is Terrace Gusta. Terrace Gusta, how are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. Please, as you're coming in, be sure to like the stream. Again, you know what? I'm just going to put the link to the panel in the chat or try to send it privately. Let me see if that's what is going to be the best here. I will be back in a second. I do not mean to leave you guys hanging. I'm going to check my DM. Maybe the brother has a message for me. One sec. Just give me 1 second, brother. All right. Yes, and if you're in the chat, if you have any update for us, just to let me know. We'll share it on the screen here. We work together as a family here, and that's what makes the Blue Morning Show good. Yep, good thing. Let me see. Wanted to send a message to somebody here. I will be with you guys in a bit, and I will keep reading the comment. And Tobago here says, Coachila, why you prefer Sir Martin Broughton? Quite a whole lot of reasons. Here's the reason why Liverpool has a very good structure right now and are doing well. I know people don't really like it when you compare, when you hear somebody say That is when the fact that he's worked for Liverpool and the fact that two people in his that's part of the makeup of his consortium co-own some of the clubs. Salis has some percentage of the ownership of some clubs in the Premier League, but to me, that is something I am willing to overlook, given that he's proven he's good, really, really good at running clubs. That's important. After all, why are we complaining? We've had people such as Peter Kenyon, who was the Manchester United, I think, was he the chairman, and who came to Chelsea and did a very good job for us. So I don't know why, if we haven't followed, most of us haven't followed the history of Chelsea Football Club enough to know that the fact that Martin Broughton was once the chairman of Liverpool doesn't change anything. Once he's the owner of Chelsea or part owner of Chelsea, you can say he's loyal to changes. And after all, he's a long-time Chelsea fan. So I don't know why people don't want to give him a chance. Look at Liverpool. They are a well-oiled machine. The structure is great. The scouting system is perfect. So, and why not consider Sir Martin Broughton's consortium? I think some people just by default, because it's British, is the reason why they don't want to see him become the new owners of the Chelsea Football Club. Link for the panel. I'm just going to share it there, and I'm going to make sure it is pinned at the very top. So if you want to join, you can join me on the panel so we can talk about this more important topic. And I'm going to start by looking at this that was shared to me, sent to me by Tobago, which reads, Mr. Pagliuca, like his three rival bidders, has had to commit at least $1 billion to invest in the Blues infrastructure in order to make the final shortlist selected by Rain, the merchant bank handling the sale. Yep, Rain are the merchant bank handling the sale. But then again, that's having the money, I think, isn't, if you ask me, isn't good enough for me. You'd have to be well equipped, know how to run a club, and then have a record that shows you can actually run a club. I think Sir Martin Broughton, he ticks all the boxes, and he's one of the only few of the the potential new owners of Chelsea Football Club who openly say that he doesn't want the club in the future to go through what they're going through right now. And I think, given his background and given the makeup of his consortium, I think they're well placed not to, lead the club into such situations in the future. Pierre, I want to welcome you to the panel. It's been a while. Let me say it's been a minute, but I fully understand. I truly understand. We're all busy because bills don't pay themselves. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing okay, and you?
I can't complain. I'm doing really well. As long as it's live, there's hope. Yeah, nice to have you back on the panel. So I want to ask you, Pierre, your thoughts on why people nobody seems to trust the Martin Broughton group. Some don't even give them a chance. But I've looked at things, and after some research, I think there may well be underdogs to spring some surprises there, because they have a good history, especially if you want to talk about how well he's done it with the Liverpool, as a chairman of Liverpool. Your thoughts, Pierre? Can you hear me, Pierre? Are you still there? Declared, welcome to the panel. How are you doing, brother?
How's it going?
I'm fine. It looks like, it looks like we lost up here. Thank you for finding time to join me early in this one, because I knew this was going to be a really difficult one, to run alone. So the question I have for you, Declared, why don't people trust the Martin Broughton group?
I don't know.
Why don't people trust the group?
I think that earlier, no one knew who's his consortium is. I think that's where the big distrust was. But I'm actually probably, look, I've stated that I'm not a big fan of none of them. but I like the Sir Martin Broughton one more. First of all, I think one of the biggest ones is that he's British. I don't know if you noticed. You probably have. While being under a Chelsea fan under Roman, the media were against us. We barely had pundits. It felt like everyone was against us. Till Mr. Lampard came in and was our manager. And then I started to see favoritism that I never seen before. Now imagine we get a British owner, which is becoming a little bit more rare in the Premier League. This guy, just on the media alone, right? We will start to see favoritism that we haven't seen before, that will become unusual. And
okay, you're saying if he succeeds in becoming the new owners of the club, the media narrative and Chelsea perspective will change, from a positive perspective.
Yeah, because me and you are more international fans, right? And you can see a difference when with British fans and on the ground, and it's very understandable. This is in every country, but we're fans of the English Premier League. So once think of what's happening with our young boys. You know how people are big fans of Mount because Mount is British and play for England. Same with you'll find how people are want Declan Rice over Tchouameni because he's also an English fan. It's very normal biases, right? And it's very normal. So it's not like I have any issue with it. It's a very normal thing to happen. Now you're going to have English media with an English owner, right? Of course they're going to start favouring and talking Chelsea in a good light. And once we have a lot of boys come out of the academy, and then they're gonna market and they're gonna blow up and they're gonna really talk about Chelsea English national team players, and they're gonna talk up Chelsea as look at the great things they're doing because the English, and it's gonna be a little bit patriotic, and it's gonna be in the same way. We were all like they were against Chelsea because we had a Russian owner. Is the same way it's going to swing the other way, and that alone, is going to be very. You'll notice it 100%. I can see it, and that I don't think people give that too much credit, like to understand the potential of being good light with the media.
I get that point, but I'm going to come back to you, and immediately I want to say. Somebody in the chat is it Ojo? And Ojo, it looks like this is your first time here. And if that's the case, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. That helps us grow. And also like the video to help us reach more people. Pierre, it seemed like you had an issue before. I want you to respond to what Declan just said before I ask you the question I wanted to ask you before. It looks like he's still having an audio issue. Okay, Declan, let's continue until he comes back. Declan, now you just mentioned how that can get the British media to. Okay,
Hello?
He's back. You there now, Pierre? Pierre, can you hear me?
Hear you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you crystal clear. We can hear you crystal clear. I don't know. Did you hear Declan's response? If Martin go ahead.
Yeah, there was nothing really on the declared side that I feel I need to answer because it was mostly to do with his British nationality, which of course doesn't have a concern to me at all as being in here. But that's not why I would favour the Broughton bid on its own. It's the fact that he has worked in a similar role with Liverpool. He stepped in and and he's declared that as something as a strength which the other areas haven't done. I'm always surprised why the Broughton Group is not regarded higher. I don't think they've been as secretive as some people say. We certainly know a lot of information. We know that obviously his consortium has himself on there. He's got Sebastian Coe, who's obviously been involved in sport in Britain for a while. We know about the two. We know about the two American bidders who have got shares in Crystal Palace, Josh Harris and this David Blitzer. we also know that he's got an investment person called Martin Klein, who he's worked with before, and he's also got the Creative Artists Agency and Evolution Media Capital, which is affiliated to the Creative Artists Agency. The Evolution Media Capital is their merchant bank that's part of that group, and that they have already worked with the two Americans, so that they've actually done joint things in. It was all to do with advertising or giving a higher profile to the sporting clubs, etc. So they've worked hand in hand together, these creative artist agency, etc. Another thing with the two American bidders is that they've, we've spent a lot of time talking about the rickets and stuff, and probably too much time here, but we've got two people here who have actually got as part of their sports and entertainment, have already pledged £20 million in order to fight racist injustice in black communities. And they did that since August 2020. There's a lot of details that I've looked up on the two. The issue has always been the Crystal Palace ownership. And that's why some people said, well, we're not happy on them because they have to sell shares. But we already have an announcement about the fact that one of the owners of Crystal Palace, the one who's got 40, wants to, this John Textor has already said that he is willing to buy the shares off Josh Harris and David Blitzer. Well, certainly a number of shares that then take away the fact that it would be an issue, because they have to drop so many percentage of their ownership in Palace. When I say ownership, the amount of shares, because they don't own Crystal Palace, they have shareholdings in Crystal Palace. They need to be under 10% for that not to be an issue. So, but if we're looking at what Sir Martin Broughton is pledging, he's pledging, keeping Chelsea at the pinnacle of European competition success, investing in players, investing in the infrastructure. He's basically made a commitment to the fans, that fans will have a priority in the club, and he's committing to investment. And he even came up with a statement about the fact that his consortium, as lifelong Chelsea fans, both himself and Sebastian Coe, I know they're not providing all the money and that they got a consortium, but he was suggesting in his bid that his bid was more about keeping Chelsea at the top rather than them all making money. On the basis making money was not the priority. Obviously no one's there to make a loss, but he is there to actually ensure that Chelsea stay where they are. That's
yeah. And if you allow me, I want to read one of his comments. He says that reads, I don't want to be, and none of the guys in the team want to be the guy who took the club from where it is today to mediocrity. We are not interested in doing that and not making a bit of money. That's not the name of the game. We wanted to stay right at the top. And that's a very good comment. And if you look at them compared to every other prospective new owners, they're not too much in the media making so much noise. So, but I'm still concerned and still asking the question of why so much? Because it is hate. And if you ask me, I say people hate them for no just cause. And again, Declan, I'm going to say this to your hearing. I know you don't want to hear us talk about us being run the way Liverpool is run. I think he's done quite well, and he's the reason why Liverpool has a very good structure from the scout to everything they do. And they hardly since after he left the club in a very good shape, and nothing has changed that much since. I mean, it's been from strength to strength. So I don't know why people don't like them. I think they're the most positions to take a good care of the club. They understand the country very well. He's done a similar, he's done being chairman of Liverpool, and he did quite well there. So why not give them a chance? I don't know why. In fact, let me just say, from the perspective of the fans, I just don't understand why people seem to look beyond the monetary aspect of the whole thing and look at those that have had the experience, those that are well positioned to do well. Declan, why do you think that's a problem? Why do you think that's happening?
They're not getting the media shine that they should. Yeah, all Todd Bowley did was have a a video out of into about talking about winning. That's all he did. But what Pierre was said, I agree with everything, and I was only elaborating on his on something that people didn't see. But he part of why he's one of my why he's my preferred option is because
Mm.
him and some of his consortium have interests, interest and experience in football. Where my biggest criticism was Todd Bowley has no idea about football. He says we need to do this and we need to do that, but you don't know anything. That's my criticism with all the American owners. The American sport culture I'm not a fan of because that same culture is in Australia where I am too, and I get upset because we copied that culture instead of copying different models around the world, right? And so it's very franchise Super League type over there. They have a different idea, and plus, when like the data type style transfers came from baseball, and baseball, data means a lot more because every time baseball starts, it starts in the same way. That's why it's very data driven, right? It doesn't work in football in the same way that it does in baseball. Of course, there's going to be data, but not in the way they thought they could influence the sport. To answer your question even more, it just comes down to the media. Why isn't someone why isn't he getting propped up? He probably is getting propped up in England, but in terms of where we can see, in the social media world, the Americans are getting big big props from everyone else, and especially Americans themselves.
And
So
even the British media themselves are pushing the Americans even more, shoving it up the mouth of Chelsea fans, and they talk less of that is the group that would actually be that would be more effective should they emerge the owners of Chelsea Football Club. Like honestly, I have to, like I told you, I had to do my research to find out this guy is actually they have the that is the most they're the most equipped to get the job done because they've proven they can do it. But go ahead, Declan. Sorry, I didn't mean to
yeah, I was
cut
just
you
going to
off.
say, the other factor is that Ricketts have sold the headlines for at least last month, right? So we haven't heard a lot on the other consortiums.
Mm,
So Samantha Borden has been not talked about as much, but still was in the mix, right? Wasn't one of the favorites. And we had a mystery bidder just rock up as well that we don't know. Sorry, I mean it's the Palika group as well, which came in late. And now we don't know much about him. There's also other consortiums joining. Um, like I said, it's very cloak and daggers. We don't know, and we should know more. I wish they all got a chance to speak because I heard there are some interviews he's been on. He's been on Sky Sports as well. He's been on Talk Sports as well. Samantha Broughton talks from himself more than the other groups, and it hasn't gone around the social media world as it should because he said all great things. He said that things that people gave credit for, the other consortiums are doing. He talked about fan-centric ownership, involvement. He talked
mm,
about the consortium, how what happened to Roman can't happen with a consortium because
mm,
if one falls and you just take over, so it's more stability, and because of that, they're in it for the long haul. They're not in it for short term where you can sell it to another owner. So the consortium are in it for a long haul. They're all fans, and that's why they're well invested. He said all the great things. He said more than what the other consortium say. But I think in the British media he is getting time. I just don't think it's spreading like it should in the social media world.
wow, that's really concerning. I think. Yeah, I'm going to come back to you, but I wanted to ask. Pierre something, but before that, Ty, comment on your thoughts. Since we're not hearing from Ty here, and I want to read this comment here. I think this was,
Can you hear me?
yeah, go ahead, but let me quickly read this. This was in response to what you said about the fact that if he if the Martin and Broughton group emerges as the new owners of the Chelsea Football Club, that would change the media narratives on the image of the club. And I'll just say is they will always hate us. It is because of our success, not our owners' nationality. I think, yeah, it's partly both, if you ask me. But with that, I want to say to everybody in the chat and wherever you're watching from, please, if you haven't, be sure to smash that like button so that the YouTube algorithm will be triggered and the stream will be pushed to more people. And if you haven't, please do subscribe to the channel. We're shooting for 2,000 subscribers, and we want to get that done by the end of the month, and you can help us get there. So Ty, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I missed a bit of what was asked.
Yeah, the question is, why do you think people aren't talking so much about the Martin Broughton consortium? They're the most equipped to lead Chelsea well, to get the job done at Chelsea, to take good care of the job, given the experience, given that Martin Broughton himself, who was the Liverpool's chairman, who helped restructure Liverpool chairman, who helped, bring them where they should be. Nobody's talking about that. People are just looking beyond their capabilities, but they want to talk more about people they feel like they have more money than this group. But this group, if you ask me, is the group that's most equipped for the Chelsea takeover.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something new. It tends to happen. The ones that are really popular are always the ones that aren't really fully equipped to do what is necessary. It's surprising that a lot of the other ones are getting, airtime when you have one that appears to have the characteristics of something that could actually benefit the club and help in redeveloping it. Probably taking it to even if it's not to the same level, but bringing it to a similar level, bringing it to a possibility that using this individual, it can then coming in will to some level guarantee some level of success in a sense, but at the same time, focusing on the fact that it's the English media. The English media tends to do this. They tend to hype up what's popular, the popular opinion. You don't really see the popular opinion popping up here from them. So they'll tend to do these type of things for the sole reason that it's mostly common. But I mean, I always see it as the ones that are always hyped up. They never go too far. And I mean, you can probably use I don't like going back to the past, but you can use Catalina Kim, because when she was expressing this and she was outlining what her consortium was with Nick Candy, they basically didn't make it. So the ones who being hyped, that's when I feel more confident that those ones won't really make it too far, because they're the ones that being hyped, and then something changes and some developments happen and it changes. But the media tends to do this. The English media correction tends to do this because it's mostly the popular opinion, and they always feel the most popular opinions, and they don't really stick to ones where giving each individual equal amount of airtime to outline what they're doing. There's always the Todd and the Ricketts, and that Ricketts are doing this, Ricketts family are at games, things like that. So it tends to happen, and it's nothing new, but it is interesting to know that that this this consortium is actually equipped to a level to do what is necessary.
Yeah, I really do agree with you. I think the media will always pounce on popular opinion because that's what sells, gets them more views or more clicks, if you want to put it that way. Pierre, I'm going to comment to you, and this comment on the screen, I think it makes perfect sense, and I think you help the educators on even more why that is true. Boy says, out of all the consortiums, Martin Broughton is the only individual who has investors and himself who have experience in the Premier League, proven. He doesn't just have experience. It's proven that he can be successful And this is this. If you look at it from if you look at it and be truthful to yourself, you can say, he will do even better as an owner of the club. Look what he did as a chairman. If that's want to be if you want to see it like that. So, Pierre, I'm coming to you. Your thoughts on this comment on the screen, and maybe from there educate us even more why Sir Martin Broughton is a better option for us if we're telling ourselves the truth. Have we lost Pierre again? Pierre, are you still there? It looks like we've lost him again. So let's, if you want to come in, Declad, if you want to come in, there's one thing people don't seem to understand. I think it doesn't matter how much the owner, that is the groups, how much their combined net worth at this point is. What matters, because first of all, before you even get to the phase at which they are at right now, you'd have to commit £1 billion or $1 billion. I'm not sure how much. So beyond that, none of these groups are paying out of pocket. They're all gonna borrow the money. But it doesn't look like Chelsea fans are looking beyond the fact that how much the group or the individual has. It doesn't matter how much they have, as long as they're able to commit like $1 billion, like I've talked about, and all the factors that come into play. Your thoughts on why people are still looking at things from a monetary, financial perspective?
Well, we've been conditioned, and I think everyone's been conditioned. The more money someone has, we think the more money doesn't mean to them, and the more money more money that can burn through their pocket. So if the whole consortium's worth 50 billion, that we would think, well, yeah, they would invest their own money if need be. But it comes down to the individual.
But that's not the case.
But I wanted to add Coachella too. After, I didn't quite understand why more and more people were joining the consortiums, and you can see that now so now I think they're gonna have another round of bidding, and you can see that more and more people had joined the other consortiums, and I quite don't understand, because I didn't think it was a bidding war, but do you remember how apparently one of the negotiating parties, the person that takes over must invest in the stadium, right? Do you think there's another clause in there about investing in the team? So, like, let's say,
is that a question or?
Yeah, it's a question where I feel like so instead of the club going for 4 billion, let's say, right, 4 billion, let's say Roman's happy to take 1.6, whatever the loan debt was, and then he has a clause, and what he wants to, and this is on an extreme level, right, of Roman's love for the club, and wants to leave it in a great condition. Instead of taking money, is he trying to get the bid high with the insurance that, say, you have to invest 1 billion in the stadium, you have to invest 1 billion in the team over 10, 15 years, something like that, and then Roman can feel safe about the team. He knows the team's in good hands for about 10 to 15 years at least. Do you think that that's the reason for getting more getting the bid higher, because it's going to be guaranteed returns back into the team? Because besides that, he's not seeing, his money's frozen, and he might not see it. So what's the reason for the bidding war?
Per, do you have an answer to that question?
What about the bidding war?
Yeah, about what Declan just said.
Well, that was brought up in the fact that they had to make certain promises. The development, a lot of them have actually specified, Ricketts and the Bowley group have both mentioned about it. That would also be part of the Martin Broughton group, otherwise they wouldn't have been shortlisted. But as part of this second phase, it had been specified that they had to promise to put £1 billion for the actual team infrastructure, which would be, I would imagine, everything to do with the operation of how the team runs and to buy certain players. So they've also had to make promises on that as well.
Yeah, I want to. I know you had an audio issue also before you went out and come back in.
I've changed my headset in case it was bad.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for doing that. Here's the one I was looking at here, and it says out of the consortiums, Martin Broughton is the only individual who has investors and himself who have experience in the Premier League. And I emphasize then he doesn't just have experience; he's proven that he's good at what he does. And I believe as an owner of the club, he would do even better. So why aren't people seeing this aspect of the whole thing? They're just looking at money. But the truth is, if they educate themselves on the whole process, it's not how much the whole group has, the liquid cash, as LSD would call it. It's about, if you're able to meet the criteria, overall criteria that's on the takeover of the club, and also your experience matters. Your experience in running a football club also matters. Why are people fixated on money?
I wouldn't know why they're fixated on the money. I mean, if we talk about the Ricketts, they've got one multi-billionaire person, Ken Griffin. They've got this person who is a Facebook co-founder or whatever coming on board. So there's more money coming there. I'm sure that the Todd Bowley group have got more people. At the time, that references to say that Sir Martin Broughton's group only had the two American investors and they are worth so many billion. They're still worth so many billion. We also know that there was an investment person called Michael Klein. That we've also got this creative artist agency. But do we go around and say how much each of these areas worth? I think the main thing is that these areas have all worked together. I'm not going to say with Liverpool because. But certainly Creative Artists Agency have worked with the two investors, Josh Harris, etc., on initiatives in America, so that they're used to working with each other. They've obviously got there is a bank side to that particular party, but I'm sort of homing in more of what Sir Martin Broughton says. We talked about the media not covering. I mean, the media is always going to cover the stories that aren't going to make the news. So that's why the Ricketts have dominated, because of the no to Ricketts and various other things.
Yeah, they're what people want to read about.
Yeah, that's what they want to read about. Meanwhile, Sir Martin Broughton has specified that fans will be the centre of the bids. They will have a right to veto. He's come out with statements about what him and his consortium have done. I've actually got in quotes. This is Martin Broughton said, "I don't want to be, and none of the guys in the team want to be the guy who took the club from where it is today to mediocrity.
Yep.
We are interested in doing. We're not interested in doing that and making a bit of money. That's not the name of the game. We want to stay right at the top." He's also specified, and I'm not going to say the others haven't done so as well, but he's also stated that he wants Thomas Tuchel to stay as the manager. Obviously he adds the fact that obviously the end result is Thomas Tuchel. That's his decision, but if Thomas Tuchel wanted to leave, then there's nothing they could do to stop him. But their prime thing is to actually ensure that he stays with the team, and they want to spend money to keep them at the top of the European, keep them in the European competitions and stuff. And Sebastian Coe, who, okay, he's not been involved in football before, but he's been involved in a lot of sport in the United Kingdom. He currently holds his World Athletics side person. I mean, forget about his Tory background. He wasn't, he is a lot of rich people in this country join the Tory party, or if they become an MP, will be in the Tory party. But he's been from an athlete himself right the way through to the London Olympics organisation, to what he's involved in at the moment, and he's backing Sir Martin Broughton because he believes he's the best person for the job, because they're both Chelsea fans, lifelong Chelsea fans, and the fact that Sir Martin Broughton has actually turned around Liverpool to a.
Yes, please go ahead and educate us the type of that is where Liverpool was before he became the chairman, and how much good he's done to the club. That's important for people to learn.
he turned the team into they were virtually going downhill. He's turned them around, as the comment here, into a current loathable status. I mean, because now they're a successful team. But when he was there, took over the role, and we have to say he was offered the job to be the chairman. He took it as a business opportunity, and he was there to turn things around, get in the new owners, FSG, to take over. But if it wasn't for his contribution, if you spoke to any Liverpool fan, they wouldn't turn around and say, Sir Martin Broughton, that Chelsea fan, we couldn't stand him near. They'd turn around and say, that guy did a good job for us, because without him doing what he did, Liverpool were in danger of not being in existence. That's how serious it was for Liverpool. They turned them around from a team going, get in debt, going down, etc., to now back into the international arena, competing for the Europe Champions League, etc., competing for the Premier League, and his involvement in that is not underestimated by the Liverpool fans. So he's actually done the job of taking over a club as a chairman, and that's the role he wants to do at Chelsea. But in this capacity, he would be a Chelsea supporter looking after a club, whereas beforehand he was a Chelsea supporter helping out another club. So I sort of think if he's done that to a club that he didn't even support, what's he capable of doing? He's going to put much more passion into a club he's actually interested in and supported for over 60 years.
Yeah, let me just. I know you've answered that already. You've alluded to that. Let me specifically ask you this question. Pierre, is Sir Martin Broughton a Liverpool fan?
He is not a Liverpool fan. Both him and Sebastian Coe are season ticket holders at Chelsea Football Club. As I say, Sir Martin Broughton is, he's been a Chelsea fan for over 60 years.
So he just did a job. He was hired to do a job, and he did a job, and he did exactly, and he did a nice job. And we forgot. Correct me if I'm wrong. Peter Kenyon was Manchester United chairman at one point. Am I wrong?
He was, and Roman Abramovich brought him in for his expertise. I mean, Peter Kenyon probably was a Manchester United fan as well when he took the job. But Peter Kenyon
had a job to do.
He had a job to do at Chelsea, so he did it. Roman Abramovich probably did the right moves. I mean, you come in as a person who hasn't previously owned a football club. What are you going to do? You're going to go in and you're going to try and find people currently doing the job. It may be at another club. They may not even support Chelsea, but you're going to look at people and say, Peter Kenyon's done a pretty good job at Manchester United. It might be a team he supports, but if I offer that person, it's probably not just the money, but if I offer him the chance to do Peter Kenyon probably came over and said, Chelsea Football Club's a good opportunity for me to try and work my magic on that club. But Martin Broughton, he literally went over to Liverpool as a businessman, as an opportunity. As a chairman of British Airways and British American Tobacco Company, etc. He took it as another business opportunity to come over to save an ailing club and put it back up there. Trying to, he wasn't there for a long time, but he was there to oversee the change of ownership from the Hicks to the FSG group, and obviously now Liverpool have benefited from that and managed to get up the top of the pile again. Bit to our annoyance, because obviously they're challenging Manchester City more than we are currently. But I'm certainly interested in what he has said about the fans, making them central to his bid, ensuring that Chelsea stay at Stamford Bridge, which some people here don't agree with that, but I certainly do. And obviously wanting to keep Thomas Tuchel, the infrastructure, investing in new players, everything he said doesn't, I'm happy with. And if someone just turned around and said, yes, but the people backing him have a few £billion less than the Ricketts or even the Todd Bowley group, that wouldn't affect me, because the backers of Liverpool Football Club aren't as rich as some of the people in the consortiums, and they're doing well. I think running the club is the crucial element here, and his previous experience of running
great. I think he's the most qualified for the people. And Declared alluded to it. Yes, Todd Bowley owns a club, but the running football club is different than running a baseball club. Again, I don't know why people are overlooking at what is possibly or clearly the best option for us. But then again, it's not our choice because we're not there at the table. But immediately, I want you to address this, so I go to Declan and Ty to talk about it. This comment on the screen says it doesn't matter as long as Roman and Marina, etc., know about Martin Broughton. To you, Per, does that make a difference if they know about him, knowing how that is the good job he's done at Liverpool, how he turned things around for Liverpool? Do you think that gives him an edge over the other prospective or new owners?
I'm not sure what gives anyone an edge at this point of time, but all I know is that you can be assured that one of the groups, the Pagluca group, has got non-disclosure. But I can appreciate that people are annoyed that certain consortiums are not as public as others. I'm not sure the Ricketts should have produced this 8-point plan, because I thought the whole point was that they were supposed to not be public with their information until a later date. But they've obviously been releasing information, other groups haven't. But does that mean that they're not in the running? What we don't hear about doesn't exclude anyone. If everyone says, the front runners are these because we know what their plans are, the others have submitted plans, we're just not aware of what all the plans are.
Declan, your thoughts on this comment on the screen? Declan, Ty, are you there?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Okay, go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, crystal clear.
Doesn't matter as long as Roman know about the.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes and no.
Because he says it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying it. Yes and no, because we've been saying that about the Ricketts, yeah, and isn't the bad publicity having an effect? And the good ones would have the opposite effect. If we're saying that the protests and all the noise we're making about the Ricketts is going to have an effect, then it works the other way. If someone like Sir Broughton comes out and makes his 8-point plan or 10-point plan or whatever, just like the Ricketts did, and everyone said, "Yep," and they start champion behind that person, maybe the people that make the decision actually look at that and say, yeah, this is what this is the guy the fans really are champion behind and want more. Just like the Todd Bowley group. So Todd Bowley has probably a favoritism because everyone's like, as long as we get Todd Bowley, I'm all right. And a lot of people feel like that at the moment. So I don't think it doesn't matter. I think it does matter in a way. I think it would have an effect. So that's why I felt. Why don't the fans have more of a say? A bit more transparency, so the fans can voice their opinion. But if that doesn't matter, that statement's true. If the people deciding don't care about what the fans want and feel like they know better.
Okay. And if you're in the chat, thank you very much for that input. I'm looking for questions that are aligned to the topic we're talking about. Questions regarding the sale of the club, but more importantly, question regarding the Martin Broughton group. Ask any question you want to know about them, and I'm happy to say that I have Pierre in the house who's well acquainted with the group and can help answer any question that you may have regarding the Martin Broughton group. So if your question is aligned with the topic at hand, you most likely get an answer for us. Ty, any input on that last part regarding the fact if Roman Abramovich is aware of the job that Martin Broughton did at Liverpool, and if Marina is aware of that, that's an advantage. Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, it sounds good, and everything that Pierre was saying sounds like it's all good things, because if he helped Liverpool in that way, then that's a positive. And I like the fact that he mentioned that if he did such a great job at a club where his heart isn't entirely there, and when he comes to the club where his heart is more of a case there, imagine what he'll do. He may go the extra mile. But I also find it so interesting that each week there's always this consortium that comes up with something and then they become the favorites. And I know I like this little competition, this little race, in a sense. But yeah, it sounds good, and I mean, it's like I said, the ones that are really probably the best suited for the club are the ones that don't get
Mm.
any attention, and that is why when people are hyping up saying, "Oh, I want the Todd Bowley group," I remain relaxed because anything can happen. Things can change for the better or for the worse, and I mean, things like this happens and alterations have to be made, and you know, opinions change quite quickly when you see this. Which is why, for me, I haven't really had a favorite because this person looks like they're the favorite, but at the same time, the favorites don't always win. So who knows? At the end of the day, we could not end up getting Todd and his data and everything. But who knows, man? This Sir Broughton seems like he's the real deal. But I mean, we don't know when it happens. But it sounds good, and I'm hoping that if things do go in a positive way, that um what's necessary can be done.
Yeah, yeah, good input right there. Before I go to the next question or input in the chat that I wanted Pierre to address, if you haven't, please be sure to smash that like button. We have about 43 people watching and we have just 22 likes. I know we can do better than that. Please bump up the likes so that our YouTube algorithm will be triggered and the stream will be pushed to more people who are interested in this particular topic. A very important one indeed. Yes, no to rickets. I'd like to see that from Mikhail. And just the openness, a big up to all. Cheers to you too. I hope you're all doing well. Chelsea fans and protest Ricketts family release a statement because they love public attention. I think you could argue that's the case. Here's the one I wanted us to talk about. It's not this one here. Let me find the comment here. It says, okay, I don't know why I highlighted that one. This question here quickly. I'm just going to take this question, but please, if you want your question or concern to be addressed, you have to make sure it is aligned with the current topic. Then we will talk about it. Pierre, this question here say any chance of Roman Abramovich holding on to Chelsea? I know we've talked about that 1,000 times, but maybe we need to explain why that is impossible again. Holding on to Chelsea if the war stops in 2 weeks' time. Your thoughts are, Pierre?
Well, I don't think the war will stop in 2 weeks' time, and even if it did, I don't see Roman Abramovich backing out of this particular sell process and then sort of just changing around it. Yeah, he still has the visa issues in Britain. He's got the Israeli passport, but if everything changed around, it wouldn't have happened overnight. And then and he's not going to just say, right, your assets are now unfrozen and everything would just carry on as normal. I mean, there's been suggestions that he's even contemplating buying Valencia in Spain, but then you turn around and say, well, how could he do that? He's got EU sanctions against him. So there's, I just see there's media. One moment he's buying a club in Turkey, which is more conceivable because he won't have sanctions set upon him in Turkey. But in Spain, he would be under the EU sanctions, because United Kingdom put sanctions on Roman Abramovich, but then so did the EU. So I couldn't see how he could take over Valencia, let alone stay at
Turkish club.
Chelsea. Or a Turkish club. That I think that's an option if that was true, but I don't even think that's true. It seems to be one moment he's buying a club in Brazil, next minute it's Turkey, next minute he's considering buying Valencia, and that's three stories in the last few weeks.
A Brazilian club too.
Yeah, I think the first one was it was suggested he might buy a club in Brazil. The first story I heard, and then it turned to one in Turkey, or he's virtually done a deal in Turkey, and now he's buying one in, going to buy one in Spain, Valencia. But another comment I'm seeing that rolling up on the comments page from time to time is where people are saying, have the UK government given approval to the Ricketts? It's not the case that the UK government have given approval to the Ricketts. They have just turned around and said that they wouldn't stand in the way of any of the four in the shortlist. So by default, yes, they have, but only because they've approved all four of the people in the shortlist. And that includes Pagluka, that includes Sir Martin Broughton, and that includes Todd Bowley. So all the consortiums, the government said whoever gets chosen, they're not going to stand in the way. That's not the government turning around and saying, oh, we're approving the Ricketts bid. They're not approving the Ricketts bid. They're just saying that they wouldn't oppose it if they were chosen as the new owners. So the selection is not the UK government saying our preferred bidders are the Ricketts or anything. They're just saying we have no issues with any of the 4 that have been shortlisted.
That is such a brilliant response to that. What is it again? Let me find it. From Arthur Lowe, you have your answer. There's no chance that happens. That ship had already sold, and to add to it again, if you were Roman Abramovich, would you still hold on to the club that you already haven't? He's already had visa restrictions and all that. I don't know if that's the correct term for it. Would you hold on to the club that every time there's a global crisis and your country is involved in it, you get sanctioned, you start going through such problems? I think he's made up his mind to sell the club. I don't think he would change his mind again. That ship had already sold. And that's, let me see if we have any other comment here to address. Tobago, okay, this is just, why did I even highlight that? Again, he already answered this. The UK government hasn't approved anything. The four prospective new owners in the current phase have all been approved. They've made it to that level. So it's just people. I don't know if it is designed to get the fans a reaction or so, because we've been reactionary to the whole situation all the time. So I don't think that's the case. Nothing has been approved for. Nobody has been approved to become the new Chelsea owners. I think that's the best way to put it. They look at the consortium and net worth and compare to others. Is that true up there?
Who's looking at their consortium net worth compared to others? I mean, certain people here have, but I don't think.
I think he's thinking about how the people see it, why they prefer other bidders than the others.
Well, if you turned around and said who is worth the most, I have to admit some of the media have gone crazy about Ken Griffin's worth, and have mentioned several times that fact that he's actually worth 3 times the amount that Roman Abramovich is worth. Basing on the fact that Roman Abramovich worth seems to differ between 6 billion to 10 billion pounds. They're sort of taking 7 billion worth and then multiplying it by 3 and saying, right, Ken Griffin on his own is worth 21 billion, and obviously this other MBA, whatever the person with that who was involved in Facebook, I'm not sure what his worth is, but if you add that person to Ken Griffin, you would probably say that Ricketts have the consortium with the biggest amount of wealth behind them. But does that make a difference? Because no one wants the Ricketts in this. Well, there might be some people in this area that want them, but I certainly don't want the Ricketts just based on money alone. Because all the consortiums are rich. There are many Premiership teams running on with owners that are worth less than £10 billion, including Roman Abramovich. If you're taking his current worth. It's what they do. It's what they do. That's more important. Ken Griffin could have £40 billion, but if the Ricketts want to run the club in a way that is designed to make them more money, okay, I would imagine they'd want success as well. But if they invest less in the infrastructure than another group that on paper have less money backing them, but do more for the club, I go for the one that has less money on paper, but actually does more with the infrastructure and, more importantly, have actually run a club before. Yeah,
I think that makes perfect sense. Declan, coming to you, aside from, should I say the inflated publicity, or maybe, I don't know how else to phrase it, that these guys get from the press, why do people just compare the net worth of the groups and just decide, okay, this is the first choice?
With the assumption that they'll spend more. It's pretty simple. We think if someone's got more wealth, that he has more money to burn, like I mentioned before.
But is that even possible, given the FFP, which has since been tightened also? There's what's called a luxury tax now. And none of them will spend out of their pocket.
Yes, but there is an amount that how much the owner can put in as well. And there's also a special amount that a new owner can put in. Yeah. So I think it was 10. It started off 10 million, but I think an owner can put 10 million every season. But I think that's gone higher. So that alone is a small amount, but that's something the owner can put in. Now, Roman ran Chelsea as almost a non-profit, and every other, and as you've seen, like someone like Man City have found different ways to put money in, and all these clubs are finding different ways to get around FFP. Even even one of those transfers that happened, I think, was last season between Barca and Juventus for who was it again? It was a swap deal for, I forgot the players' names. It was Adrian was one of the players, the young players. They did
Is it?
and Passage was it Pasalic?
I don't
Uh,
remember who that is.
Anyway, they did a swap deal that was structured just to help them each for FFP to increase how much they can spend, right? A deal that, because when you do a transfer, um, say for 50 million, for example, and but the actual club is paying that over time, but you get that buffer for that season, the 50 million, right? So
Mhm.
FFP isn't fine tuned yet, and clubs are finding different ways. So the more richer the owner, the more maybe exploitative the owner is. People, you
Mhm.
can probably
Mhm.
say they're going to find more ways around it. Um, having said that, also the way Roman ran it was almost like a non-profit organization where he wasn't looking for profit. He took all the resources and used it. Now, there's probably also an assumption that a rich owner is not after smaller profits from a sporting club, and he's going to run it in a similar manner. Um, when you compare with an owner that probably has a couple billion, who might actually look to make money out of the club. So there's all these probably assumptions, and we just assume maybe it's a safe assumption, but I don't think so. I look at it a little different, but in a majority sense, that if someone has more money, they won't care about making money at a sporting club. But
Yeah, but I
you got to
don't
take,
think again to add to what
yeah,
you just said. Are you still speaking? Sorry to cut you off.
yeah. I was just going to add that my personal opinion is not that it that the reason why some of these rich people are rich is because how they make money, and I don't think that's a factor. You got to look to the individual.
Yeah, and please, if you're in the chat, if you haven't, please, it's important that you will like the video. It is free. It takes just a second, and if as you're liking it, if anybody asks you to pay, reach out to me or just let them know I already paid for you. Please do like it so that it will trigger the YouTube algorithm and push the stream to more people who are interested in this a very important discussion. And if you haven't, do subscribe to the channel. That means a lot to us. Declan, I'm going to start with you with this one before I go to pair. It reads, Sir Martin Broughton will look at short-term financial stability similar to his time at Liverpool. The other three consortium are long-term and are more risky since they focus on investment or return. Your thoughts, Declan?
Um, aren't we financially stable already?
Well,
Is
I mean,
is
I think you could say no because we had the loss this past season, and we've been spending recklessly, if you ask me. And yeah, that's my personal
no?
opinion.
uh,
At this point, that you could say no, we're not. That's me.
for me, it looks reckless because of what I mentioned before. It looks reckless because Roman wanted to be. Roman used all our resources
Mm,
because it's about winning. If the club had to make a small loss, and we made money, we made money through the loan system and selling, and right. And if you had to throw money in, if you had to invest more money in,
mm,
it was more about using all our resources. It gave, to me, it gave an illusion of being reckless. But if the club wanted to tighten up, just like when we had the transfer ban, we had so much money. We had so much money that as soon as we came out of the transfer ban, we spent so much. The club wasn't about holding money. That was the reason. So I think it's more the club made quite a bit of money. There was restrictions in stadium and stuff like that, and our wage bill was high, but it was because of the mentality of using all our resources. Now, if all of a sudden Chelsea were, say, Roman actually came back and wasn't in the greatest position, he can also tighten up. That was also an option. Tighten up, don't spend as much, keep the wage bill tight, and stability was right there. I think we were so stable that we spent so much. We could spend so much that looked reckless because the amount of money we brought in every year, the success brought more money in, right? I don't think it was reckless. Now, anyone that comes in is coming in with, might look at the books and say, well, this is a bit out of control, we just spending so much and not leaving anything in, and that's when some players might have to go, just by that. But I don't. Stability. I know he mentioned stability too, and he's probably thinking in the same of the wage with the reckless spending, which the reckless spending for us was any mistake we had, we paid to get out of it. Maybe he's talking about that, but I still think we were ran with all the resources. The fullest way to use the resources, and all you have to do is just sit back a little bit, get the wage bill, get rid of everyone. Everyone's been calling about get the dead wood out, get players out. We do have a big squad on ridiculous wages. All you have to do is fix that up, and it's not hard. And you bring more money in. Yeah.
Yeah, Per, your thoughts are, do you want to see the comment again?
No, I can remember the comments, but if I was to add to that, I think declared was more correct to begin with, that we are financially stable. I know your opinion on that. Yes, we got a loss, but you got to look at it from different perspectives. I mean, there's been a pandemic. The grounds were empty, so lots of clubs have made a loss. Yes, Chelsea spent money on Lukaku and stuff, but a lot of the money is generated by the sales. Yes, they got a loan system. That was one of their things they put in place, and I know that UEFA and various other areas look at trying to limit the number of loans you can make and changing the rules all the time to make it less financial. Because obviously Chelsea have benefited on the loan system for a number of years. But I look at what Chelsea did when the Chelsea Village was built. And that was Ken Bates rather than Roman Abramovich. So when the ground had been created, hasn't been redeveloped since Roman Abramovich has been in there. The stadiums are all built, but the hotels and stuff, they were there to generate money, and obviously they weren't generating money because they were empty. Apart from the fact that Roman Abramovich then opened them up for free use by the NHS staff, so that was a good gesture from the owner. The NHS staff could use the facilities because they were not able to use them for anything else, so they were able to use that. The staff are all retained. We're talking about all the staff, we're not just talking about the footballers on wages. Liverpool made the announcement during the pandemic to furlough their staff initially, the non-playing staff. They actually had a number on furlough to be picked up, and they retracted on that because of the backlash that they got from there. But Chelsea never went for docking payments or so. So, they paid all their staff's wages. They didn't get rid of staff during a time. And if you're talking about money lost, I would have said that's with no fans in the stadium, etc. You were expected to make a loss, and it's not a massive loss in comparison. And going on about wages, well, if you look at the wage structure, we're nowhere near as reckless as Manchester United. They've got players on, in the number of players that they've got in the top 10 highest wages is a lot more than Chelsea. So Chelsea have tried to put a cap on wages, which is one of the reasons they didn't negotiate a new contract with Rudiger, because if the goalposts keep moving, they're not willing to just pay what a player is asking for. And when they do agree a wage, then signing on fees, if they're extortionate, they're not keen on that either. So I think the club has put their foot down on paying over the top wages and not just saying, right, we'll pay you whatever you want. But yes, you can sort of look at some of the things that Chelsea have done. Obviously, sacking managers, like Frank Lampard and various other people beforehand. Obviously, has a cost each time because we always pay off their wages for the 20 million pounds here or there for terminating their contract early. So I'm just hoping that Thomas Tuchel's here for a while, so that we don't have another person, and under the new regime, that manager stays in if they're doing the job.
Yeah, okay. In terms of the great input there, as usual, Pierre. And first of all, I want to say welcome to the panel to my brother and friend Max from Burton Ballerz. If you're into chat, please. I don't know if everybody here is using their Twitter handle or their channel or their YouTube channel as their name on the screen. If you use your Twitter handles, the audience can go check out and follow you. And you've been brilliant with your responses, Pierre. I must let you know, and that's why I reached out to make sure you're part of this important discussion. So if you haven't, please go check out Max from Broughton Ballerz, the YouTube channel. Check the YouTube channel. Great content. He's a long-term Chelsea fan. He understands the club. Historic-wise, I think you could say he's an encyclopedia of Chelsea Football Club. Very, very knowledgeable of the game itself, especially from the perspective of Chelsea Football Club. Max, welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much for having me on, Coachila. Well, big out to the rest of the panel, Declared, Pierre, and there's in the chat, Strip Bear, Phantom, Mini Operas, Big Blue, Vega, Tribute, everyone else in the chat. Big hello to you. I've been watching it. Listening to the stream while I was in my lunchtime walk. I've got a bit of time today because I'm actually off from work. Yay! Been half term, so so I've got a few days off where I can chill, relax, and sometimes join your stream. So yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that, brother.
Yes. So just a couple of things that I want to address because I was listening to it because obviously you're talking about
Martin Broughton
and whether he's.
Sorry, am I saying his last name right? Broughton or Broughton?
Potatoes, Broughton.
Okay, just go ahead, brother.
I may be wrong. I'm the last person to ask when it comes to pronouncing names because, I can't even get my son's names right most of the time. So with him, I've heard a lot of the arguments for, but there is something. If I say the name Trevor Birch, do you know what I'm talking about? Anyone know what I'm talking about?
No, probably Pierre, and we may know Pierre and Declared may know him. Pierre, do you know who Max is referring to?
No, not unless it's something to do with the British American tobacco. Is that anything to do with that, with the controversy in 2000?
No, because that's what I'm saying. Trevor Birch was the one who, when Chelsea were in a financial state before, Ken Bates was here. I
remember Ken Bates, but I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, so Ken Bates was here, and as you know, with Chelsea, we were trying to compete with some of the big boys. So we started, obviously the Bosman rule came in, so we were able to get players free on decent wages. But then we started to get that step further, and we bought the like of Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank for £15 million, and that was a big deal for Chelsea back in the day, spending £15 million on a player, and we bought people like Zenden and people like that. So, but with Chelsea, we were on the verge of bankruptcy. So you probably know about that. Do you know about that? Coachella, we were on the verge of bankruptcy. It's us and Leeds to try and keep up with the big boys. We were spending. Leeds went the other way, where they lost a lot of money and they ended up getting relegated, and it took them years to get back. But Chelsea, because we had that most important match against Liverpool, what everyone knows about, we had to win that game to get into the Champions League. Had we not won that game, we could have potentially been going into administration. But Trevor Birch is the guy who came in to oversee a change because Ken Bates could no longer keep up. So he was the one who found Roman Abramovich for us. and he's the one who oversaw the takeover from Ken Bates to Abramovich. The reason I mentioned the name Trevor Birch is because this is a similar thing to what Broughton did at Liverpool. He wasn't there for long. He came in to find buyers because the Gillette Hicks was a disaster, and Liverpool were going down the same route as Chelsea, where if they were badly run up and they were in danger of just going lower down. So he came in to find a prospective buyer, and he was the one who oversaw the takeover for FSG. So he hasn't really run football. To say that he's experienced in running the club, his primary role was to get in a new buyer, and he was good at doing that. So I'm not saying he's not going to be good for Chelsea, but there's some caution as well, because he didn't actually run Liverpool. He just was the takeover of Liverpool. And when they were taken over, it was a guy, I can't remember the guy's name, who took over as the chairman. It wasn't him who took over. It was his name failed me now. So he was basically at Liverpool. I think it was that season or so, or a couple of seasons. Over there. Going on to some of the other ones and what you were talking about, I heard what you were talking about before. The other people like the Bowling Group hits, they've been in the news more than Broughton because of PR. It's all about PR, isn't it? And those guys are trying to give out that PR and telling Chelsea fans what they want to hear, because it's obviously they tell the Chelsea fans what they want to hear. Then Chelsea fans are going to be on the side, don't they? Because you've seen some people already sort of saying, okay, I like this 8-week plan by the so probably not so bad after all. And in one rich billionaire after another rich billionaire thinking about that money they're going to be investing. Really say the right things. And with Bowley, you said that he has run a football club before, so
Max, if you want to quickly drop out and come back in, because your audio is really breaking up. Sometimes it's very difficult to hear what you're saying.
Oh, right, okay. I think I had a problem yesterday on another panel. What I might do is, let me go on my other laptop. I think it's a laptop issue.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Give me 2 or 3 minutes, and then carry on the
thank you.
Okay,
thank you. Yes, I'll wait for you, brother. Per, I'll come back to you while I wait for Max to come back in. You heard everything he said regarding Martin Broughton at Liverpool. Your response to that, because he clearly said we just have to be cautious, and he's not saying, he made it clear, he's not saying he's not going to do a good job at Chelsea. So your response to his explanation of what Martin Broughton really did at Liverpool.
Well, hearing what he said said just a bit of caution there that, so Martin Broughton's response would be that he wouldn't just include the chairman role at Liverpool Football Club. He would therefore talk about the British Airways. I know these are not football clubs, but he would talk about his chairman role in 2 different companies, as well as his chairman role at Liverpool Football Club, as an example of the fact that he's done the job at a Premier League club, but he's also done the job in other companies longer, because that's his intended role at Chelsea, to be the chairman at Chelsea. So obviously, yes, it was good going back to the days when Chelsea were nearly bankrupt. I mean, I remember Gronkia scoring the goal against Liverpool to ensure that we kept in the Champions League. But yes, I wouldn't have remembered the name Trevor Birch. I do know about Ken Bates and Roman Abramovich taking over. Yes, and obviously remember the years before Ken Bates. So go back a long way to when Ken Bates took over the club for £1. But yes, I can understand that Sir Martin Broughton was not the chairman of Liverpool Football Club for a long time, and he has a specific role. But I think the only thing we've said is that he has done the role, for however briefly, and he intends to do a similar role at Chelsea, but as a Chelsea fan. And no one's going to turn around and say to Todd Bowley or the others would not do a decent job either, just because they haven't been involved in the Premier League. But I just think that involvement in the Premier League side and being a supporter of a club gives them a little bit of an advantage to the American bidders who have been owners of other sports and not football at all. But that's just my viewpoint, really.
Yeah. Again, while we wait for Max to come back in, Declan, I'll come to you before I go to Pierre. This comment here by you, boy. How do both approaches differ? The long term and the short term. What's the difference between the two? If I ask you to explain to me as a novice, as somebody who doesn't understand the comment.
We don't know the difference. We have no idea what they're gonna do. So how are we meant to know the difference of each consortium's objectives are? Because my only assumption is that any group that comes in the short term are going to try to win the fans over. So there could be a good chance on probability, just in order for that extra spending does come into play. But there's also big talk about the stadium. So we could have spending of the next couple of seasons, and depending on the success we get, depending if the teams starts to hit their peak and we want to throw a lot of money at it, but there's going to hit a point where we're going to hit what they're going to call stability, like the question says, and they're going to hold back. And I think we're going to have a period of no spending, and that's a period that I'm worried about. A period where our stadium's getting built, a period of all the spending that's going to happen soon in order to win things is going to be cut back, and we start paying off our loans. And I'm worried about some of the owners that we get, and if they bought the club on a loan, and if they can lean any loan onto the club's name, that they'll have to start paying that back in interest as well, and they might, and our spending and our rebuild and all that might come to a very tight budget, or tighter budget than we've seen in the past, and that could be a time where Chelsea will struggle. But in terms of trying to guess which consortium is going to do what, I think what I just said is probably maybe a goal for all the consortium groups that are coming in. But it's probably just a reality. But we don't know who has what idea straight away.
Yeah. Max, before I come to you, I want to ask Pierre this question, because since we're on this topic, and Matt, I wanted to show you this. It is from Phantom of Many Topics, $5. He says, and Mike, Phantom, thank you very much. Phantom also has a channel where he uploads travel videos. He has quite a lot of them because he visited London recently, visit museum and all that. He has some great videos there. He says, he says, in honor of the Burton Ballerz intro song.
My commission's in the post, Coach, yeah?
Yes, that is just brilliant. I know he knows you very well. He's been, he's always, I see
one of my biggest supporters.
Of your channel. Yes,
usually the first to like or comment, which I appreciate.
Yeah, he's very supportive of Chelsea content creators overall and everybody, most especially your channel. So thank you again, Phantom. So Pierre, the question I want to ask you, just bring clarity to this comment. Is there really a difference between short term and long term? In this case, do they differ in any way? And because here, boy is sounding. He clearly says the other three consortiums are long term and are more risky, since they focus on investment return. And then before I let you come in here, Bobby Fairview says, boy, what does a short-term financial stability mean? Breaking even, what makes a Broughton unique that he doesn't expect a return? So that's a great follow-up comment regarding this comment here. But you get my question. If you want to say anything else on what Bobby Fairview says, your choice, Pierre.
Well, I'm looking at that, and I don't see why Sir Martin Broughton would be looking at short-term financial stability, and the other three would be long-term. That just seems to make the assumption that Sir Martin Broughton is going to be coming into Chelsea to do a similar role that he did at Liverpool, which the situation there was he was employed to do a job at Liverpool. whereas here he's now part of a consortium bid to take over the club as the new owners, where he wants to adopt the role as chairman. And I would imagine that his viewpoint, so I'm trying to imagine from Sir Martin Broughton, he's coming with keeping the infrastructure the same, or trying to keep Chelsea at the top. He's got plans for Chelsea, whereas the plan when he was at Liverpool was to look for new owners and stop a club in Chelsea are not in the same position. We're not on the verge of bankruptcy. Obviously, if the situation went on and on, the suggestion was we would be, but we're in a good financial position, which is why we appeal to 4 bidders currently. But just because Sir Martin Broughton was employed to do a job at Liverpool, which was a short-term role to get in the Fenway sports group, I don't see it. The fact that just because he was involved in a short-term fix over there to get to the new owners, that his role here would be short-term and the other 3 would be long-term.
Yeah, great input, right?
Yeah, it could be actually the opposite, right? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say it could actually be the opposite, where these American owners have different teams they have to worry about too, and if one of their teams are in financial trouble, they will transfer funds from Chelsea to that team, which the Conquers have done before, and even the FSG group decided to buy a new NFL team as well. So their interest can be split on where they want to throw money at. So in the long term, we don't even know where their majority heart is in it. So and if it starts to become troublesome and not worth it, they will sell. So I feel it's almost like the other way around. I feel like the Americans have more chance of bailing out of selling Chelsea and that more than the Suburban group. So I think it's the other way around. I see the Americans as more of a possibility for a shorter term investment.
All right.
And if you look at other American, if you look at other American owners too, in their if you say Glazers are in the long term, they're in the long term of pulling out money all the time. So in that version of a long term is actually pretty bad.
Yes, and thank you for that input. I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back to Matt to continue with its thoughts, and I want to say welcome, Matt J. Whenever I want to say your name, Matt, what comes to mind is Matt J. Blige, and I've made that mistake on 2 occasions. Matt J. Bowles from Worldwide Chess Sport and also Worldwide Chess YouTube channel, a great friend who's over time become a brother too. Matt, welcome to the panel. I'll let Max from Burton Ballerz finish and I'll bring you in. How are you doing, Matt?
Yeah, I'm all good. Happy to be on the channel. It's been a long time since I've been on.
It's been a while, but I know how busy you are, so I'm not complaining. I know whenever you have time, you always join the conversation. And before I'll go to Max to continue with its thoughts, I want to let the people in the chat know in about, let's say, 5 minutes. So we will select the candidate for the day, and the selection of the candidates is with regards with the Roman Abramovich tribute contest, which if you get to be the winner, you get one of $50. We have 3 stages: the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals. And the primary rule is that you must not use the tribute you use in the quarterfinal stage in the semifinals. That is, if you progress, and you will not use the same attribute also in the finals if you progress. So I'll let you know what to type while Max is talking. So you put in the hashtag Roman Abramovich tribute, and then we'll do the draw and pick the candidate for the day. I think we have about 3 candidates left. So go ahead, Matt, and welcome back again to the panel.
Okay, is that audio better now?
It is sweet. It is delicious, actually.
Okay, very good. Okay, so yeah, what I was saying before I'd left was I was talking about the Bowleys, and I think I heard earlier that somebody, I think it was you, said, Coachila, that they haven't had experience of running a Premier League football club, which is true. But what you got to think that with Todd Bowley, he's been looking to buy us for about 3 or 4 seasons now. And if you're a smart businessman who runs sports clubs, which I think he is, he would have started to do his research into English football and how clubs are run. So he's not going to go into this blindly. And he's had interviews, which I've seen in the past, where he talks about English football. From the interviews, from what I've seen from the interview, he gets it. He gets it, what it is, the culture of this game, the fans and everything else. So he kind of does get it, because he's been in place to put in a bid for a while now. So and he's still probably doing his homework and trying to get the right people in place just in case he wins the bid. So just because he hasn't got the experience, it doesn't mean that it's gonna not work out well for him. And the other thing, I think Declared was talking about the problem about different consortiums or the bidders borrowing money for this Chelsea purchase. But I think one of the stipulations was it has to be a cash buyer. So you can't be leveraging funds or something. You have to use cash to get it, because Roman wants to make sure that this very thing doesn't happen. That the club we've got good custodians. So I believe that.
And just 1 second, Max. Please, if you're on the panel, as Max, if you want to come in, as Max is talking, if you want to come in with anything he's saying, so we don't lose some great inputs that's coming from him. If you have any objection or you want to say something regarding something he's saying, you feel free to let him know, and I think he will excuse you to say it. Go ahead, Max.
Yeah, I was waiting for Max to finish. And
So I think that those are some of the assurances they want to be put in place before deciding the preferred bidder. And something I saw today as well, I'm not sure if you've seen it, is that it's not necessarily going to be going to the biggest bidder. It's going to be who has the best proposal for the club. And Abramovich is going to be very much involved in who buys the club. But that's something I heard. Obviously, you're hearing different stories all the time, so you don't know which ones are true, which ones are not. But that was something, the latest I heard today.
Yeah, I wanted to
go ahead
with a few things. When you say Tarboli gets it, that doesn't come for me. He said I wanted to bring data, and and it almost made it sound like the Liverpool model. And I think when you said he's going to bring people in and he's been looking at the club, I think he's almost in on his head when he's trying to bring new ideas, not let alone run how the club is running at the moment, but he actually wants to try something new, which we haven't done, which is something he has no experience. And plus the other consortiums, besides the Bolton Group, I butchered his name all the time too, but he's the only one with EPL experience, and he has people in the consortium involved in the EPL. When it comes to Todd Bowley, my concern is not just Todd Bowley, because he says the right things. But the way he was talking, he came off as a politician and almost made it sound like Chelsea are in trouble. He goes like, we're going to do sensible spending, we're going to bring data. Chelsea have been doing just fine for 2 decades. We might have made mistakes, but we fixed. We've done some lot of good fun.
The reason why is because obviously Abramovich, he's like one of us, isn't he? He's a supporter, and he sees something he likes, he goes and buys it. If it doesn't work out, he goes and buys something else. Yeah, but is that the best way of doing business? Obviously if it's worked for us sometimes, but sometimes it hasn't worked. That's why we've left with some expensive players that we can't get rid of. We're sitting there with although he wasn't expensive, but his wages are high. And the ex-Everton guy, what's his name?
But Max, Liverpool have been in the same position, haven't they?
What's that?
Liverpool have also made some expensive mistakes as well. Benteke was Andy Carroll was. The data-driven things have also come up wrong as well. And just on top of everything, they were very much in for Werner, who would have been an expensive mistake as well.
The Andy Carroll one was a panic buy. I don't think that was driven by data, because you remember what happened with the Andy Carroll one was that we bought Torres from them, and they had to just get somebody in at that time. So it was a deadline day buy. So I don't think there was.
I agree with you, Max. What the example I'm bringing up is that the data driven isn't some kind of foolproof. right?
Can we
That,
clarify something? Can we clarify something? Did they start using data during the reign? Who was it that signed the undercover?
It's not the
Actually,
Fenway group. It wasn't the Hicks and the Gillettes. It was the Fenways who started this data.
yeah, when the Fenway
And
came in.
most of the time they've got it right under this. So
There's been a lot of examples. There's been Balotelli, there's been Charlie Adams. I mean, everyone just looks at, and this is what everyone. The narratives a bit different.
You're looking at those guys who were under the Gillette.
Well, let me give you context, right? When the Fenway group came in, right, is when they really much wanted to use this Moneyball model, which worked for them back in the States, right? And they heavily went on it, and it's where they made the most mistakes. It's only when Klopp came in, and they raided clubs like Southampton and Watford, right? And with his input, right, not data-driven input, with his input, actually they started to pick up some
exactly. No, that's
some proper
that's
chances. So it's not really data-driven. Klopp comes from Klopp and his team come from a very experienced side. So if we all of a sudden gave power to someone like Tuchel, which we don't, our club hasn't done that for a bit, and that might change now. We might start to see some players that suit the system and play well and for low money as well. Right?
You've hit the nail on the head. That's what I would say, because the fact that they're giving the manager the input, which is to build a team in his image, and they're allowing him to be involved in that data analysis is good. So because at the end of the day, what you want is what we've found at the moment. We've Lukaku on 100 million, who doesn't fit the way that Tuchel's side plays, and we've got a lot of players round holes, square pegs, and so then that's because a lot of the signings are club signings, and we haven't had a philosophy at Chelsea, a style of football in how we want to play football, and that's why we're sort of stuck with like a mishmash of different players. So, if we are going to have that data, and if they say, okay, the manager is going to be involved in that, I see that as a good thing.
Well, yeah, I think it's two separate things. I think the problem I have, I wanted to get out a few points.
Go ahead quickly so that I can bring in Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah. The problem I had was that it sounds like from Todd Bowley's side, for me, is that there's going to be a learning curve, and also and quickly to add, with the rest of his consortium is a concern to me. Not only there's a Tottenham fan on there who, to me, comes off purely there for money, so he just wants his cut and maybe not that involved, and then there's also a very old man there who, I mean, it's going to come off wrong, but where does his shares go if he passes away? It could go to anyone that has different ideas of the club, and so that is a big question mark for me. I think Todd Bowley himself says great things, and still, I do. If Todd Bowley was alone, yes, but his consortium comes up a bit more concerning than him as well. So as a collective, everyone sees. I'm surprised everyone sees them as the favourites.
Okay, Matt.
I said,
go ahead.
I haven't got a particular favourite, because obviously we're only privy to what's being put out there. So I'm hoping.
Yeah, we are in the dark. Yes, I've been saying that a lot.
So what I'm hoping is that the Rain Group, the decision makers at Chelsea, and everyone else is gonna look through all the noise, see who has the best proposals, the best business plan out there, and they'll give it to those bidders to be our custodians. Because, as I said, even the Bowleys, as I said, they're saying the right things. The Ricketts are saying the right things, but talk is cheap for me. It's about action. Actions speak a lot louder than words. So yeah, I'm just putting the faith in the club to make the right decision.
Okay, thank you. It's been a great interview from you both, and I think you all make great contributions to this, to that where we are at this point. Matt, before I come to you, please just give me a second. I want to say to people in the chat, we're changing the rules for the Roman Abramovich contents. You don't have to be on camera. You don't even have to be on the panel. You can submit your tribute, but then again, the rule remains you cannot use one tribute for the whole 3 stages. That is, if you progress from the quarterfinals to the semifinals to the finals, it must be 3 different tributes. And we understand there are elements that must repeat for it to be really Roman Abramovich tribute. So you don't have to be on camera, you don't have to be on the panel, but we will read your tribute, and people on the panel will look at it and score you with some points. And if you repeat some elements that you don't have to repeat necessarily, you get point deductions. So yeah, so Glenn, you can keep your place, just write and submit yours. And here's what you have to type here. Let me show you again on the screen. Roman Abramovich tribute, because we'll do this the draw for the day and select the candidate for the day. If you're on the panel and you want to participate, up to you. I think we have about 6. I don't know how many participants, contestants we need to complete it. 8. Just Viola, if you're in the chat, let me know. So, and again, please, wherever you're watching from, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. That goes along with Matt. Coming to you. Do you want to come in, or do you want me, to find a question for you to address?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to make the point. I think obviously there's a lot of talk between the Ricketts making a lot of noise, Bowley's making a lot of noise, Martin Broughton, I think he's not really made too much noise, but now we're starting to make a bit of noise. I think, kind of as Max said, it's talk is fine. You can talk as much as you want. You can put out statements that you're going to do this, you're going to do that, but it isn't. It means nothing. And I mean, especially with particularly the Ricketts, it almost is so PR-y that you can tell someone else has wrote that, and the same kind of language that everyone else writes, especially with the whole equality, inclusivity, to kind of try and nip that in the bud. But I think it is the action. I think we're going to have to give whoever comes in time, because it's not going to be a quick fix solution. Chelsea are going to be going on as smoothly as possible, because simply no one who is bidding is like Roman Abramovich. Roman Abramovich is one of them, one of the once in a lifetime owners that the Chelsea was literally his toy that he would throw money in, put as much money in. He didn't care about business really at all, and he was able to pump a lot of money into the club. But 99% of people out in the world is not going to be in the same way. So I think it's in an idea you have to give whoever the new owner is time. And I think there will be a transition period, no matter who you bring in, whether it's Bowley, whether it's Ricketts, whether it is the Martin Broughton. I think there is going to be a time where we might not be completely on top, but I hope that, and it might be a time, especially with transfers. I was looking into some of like the revenue and financially the statistics of Chelsea in terms of financial fair play, and we are in terms of the top 6 doing a lot worse than the likes of Man United, the likes of Man City, Arsenal, even Tottenham now. You've got Newcastle will come in with their big stadium, and if they get a lot of sponsorships and revenue, they'll start climbing up. That's the part we really need to improve on as a team as well, whether us fans like it or not, to talk about the business side of it. Because once financial fair play starts ripening up, they've got the new wage cap that's coming in that Chelsea really do need to sort out.
I think that aspect has been removed. If I'm not sure, but let me just go ahead. I could be wrong.
Yeah, and the kind of
I think it's 80% of your revenue.
Sorry,
it's 80% of your revenue. If the wage thing isn't there. Yeah.
But,
go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so I think there is a change in the way that the club has been managed. No matter whether we like it or not, we'll have to go. So I think we're going to have to almost trust whoever comes in for a little bit, give them a little bit of time, and hopefully it can flourish into something that we will resemble as what is Chelsea now. But I think we do have to be patient, keep calm. I think where we've got such a good team in terms of young talent, we've got the academy that's just bringing through lots of players. We're more better off than other clubs to do this, because we have that base that we can work off, and then everything else can slowly revolve around that in the future. So we hope that it will improve and that we will be able to get back to the top, but it is going to take time.
Yep. Again, Pierre, you want to come in there while I prepare? And if you're in the panel also, you can participate in the giveaway. You just have to go and go to the chat and type hashtag Roman Abramovich tribute so that you'll be selected. You are part of the process and get selected if you're lucky. Anybody on the panel can do that. Per, you want to come in with any other?
I'll just jump in really quickly, just on one of the points. Yeah, I don't think now we're in a position where we don't need to spend big anyway, because we are a buy to sell club now. We've been a buy to sell club for a few years now, because once financial play was put in before. If you look at even last season, we bought Lukaku for 95, but we made 100 million in player sales, and that's the way that we've been operating. So I just feel that we just need to make the right buys in the right areas. We don't have to spend big. We just need to spend smart and wisely. Get rid of some of these expensive flops that we've got on our books on high wages. For instance, if you look at Werner and Lukaku alone, you're looking at 500, nearly 600,000 a week in wages for those two players for little output. So if we bought back Broja, for instance, bought in somebody on another striker on lesser wages, then that there is a smart acquisition. So that's what we need to do. As I said before, Abramovich could afford to be a bit not reckless, but he could afford to make expensive mistakes. But now we just can't be making expensive mistakes. We have to be wise. If you remember Brentford, for instance, Brentford, they use that Moneyball system to some extent, and what they do at Brentford, it's been very successful, and they've got promoted through it. They look at their players, and even when it comes to selling players, they say, okay, if we keep this player, this is how much he's worth to us. Like when they sold, who's that striker they sold to Aston Villa? My names have gone out the window. The striker they sold to Aston Villa?
Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins, that's him. And they said, okay, if we keep him and he gets us promoted, then this is how much he's worth for us. But at the time, they weren't in a position to get promoted. So they said, okay, we'll sell him. And then, so that's how they sort of do their business model. And it does work if it's successful, if it's implemented in the right way. So, as I said, with Chelsea, we get the
Max,
right.
we don't need that, yeah?
I
always looked at it a little bit differently. That we don't really need that. You kind of started off with what I was actually thinking, and what I'm going to say is, you said bring Broja in. We have an academy that we're pumping out some good players, and all we actually needed was actually a coach and a system, to integrate some of those players in the squad. And if we integrate just like how we are now, we can almost integrate half our squad or half the squad in academy produced players, which leaves so much room for spending money and wages on actually key areas that we need big players in.
Exactly.
So
I'll just use that Brentford one as an example. I don't say we should follow that model, but you made a good point. That's what I'm saying. What we've got something like what Barcelona had a few years ago, where they had some excellent youth players coming through, who they came through together, and they just complemented them with some big buys. Real Madrid used to do that as well. They used to have youth players coming up, and then they used to buy the Galacticos, 4 or 5 Galacticos to complement the youth. And that's what we should do. We should look at the system, implement the youth system. If we need some big buys to come in to help them out, then let's do that.
Well, the biggest problem is
we've been wasting. Go on.
I was going to say, the biggest issue with what we have, because I'm a big fan of that, and we don't even need data driven. We have the players there. We don't even need to go look out so much. Because we have the players there, but because we've changed managers so much, is that there is a disconnect from the academy. So when you mentioned about Barca and so many other players, is that and even what's happening in Man City and Liverpool as well, what's coming down in their academy is that the managers in there for the long term, that the system that we're playing in is almost the system they play in the youth level. So that's been a disconnect.
It's an identified style of play. So
go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
No, I'm saying even if another manager comes in, because you've got that identified style of play that another manager can come in and transition. Because you've seen with Barcelona now, before they went away from people. When they had the Dutch guy, they went away from that style. Now they've brought Xavi in. Xavi knows the system. He knows what the style, and that's why they're getting back now to.
It's almost integrated into the culture of the club.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when we identify some clubs, they're known for a certain way. So Barca's always known for that style.
Yeah.
And so with Ajax and stuff like that, yeah.
Pierre, I want to bring you in. You have anything to add to what they're saying before I ask you the question I want to ask you, so we can maybe bring it back to the topic a bit, because we alluded.
It's all relevant. I mean, I'd say we haven't seen the full plans, but what's been brought up here is the Chelsea Academy, and that was another thing about bidders. If they want to keep the existing infrastructure, that would indicate to me that they want to keep the Chelsea Academy, which obviously you have to put investment to actually get these youth players. But I would agree, we got a lot of players with Conor Gallagher, we got Billy Gilmore that can come back in, we got Brozier, we got Cole. We got players in all sorts of places, from defence, midfield, right up into attack. I do think any particular whoever wins the consortium, they're going to do a bit like the Galacticos. They're going to get some A-list players. They're going to make some sort of statement. But in truth, any of the consortiums that could come in, they can actually concentrate on developing the grounds. They don't have to worry too much about the players, because we have got players currently. The squad is very good, and we've got lots of young players that can be brought in to also boost the squad with only maybe one or two purchases if they have to. Look for a particular A-list player in their opinion, but they can actually concentrate on developing the ground to get a high capacity, in which obviously would then put us more on even par with the Arsenal, Tottenham grounds, etc. We won't have a ground as big as Old Trafford, but we don't necessarily need one. We need one that's bigger than its current 42,000 roughly. We need to just get round about the 60,000 mark on that. But going back to consortium, Todd Bowley has been mentioned about wanting to buy Chelsea in the past, but then so have the Ricketts. So both of those have shown interest in Chelsea in the past, buying. I suppose you could include Pagluka, has got very, very brief experience with Atalanta. So I suppose all four consortiums have had interest in owning a football club.
Okay, great input right there. I will come back to you, and it's important that you mentioned it's relevant. Yes, I just don't want us to go deep into it and forget the topic of the day. And if you're watching, I'm going to bring this at the top of your screen. Please, if you haven't, go check out Max Burton Ballerz YouTube channel. Check it out. Great content as usual. Very objective, no clickbaits, and always truthful. He knows the club very well. He understands football, especially from the perspective of Chelsea Football Club. And also go check out our Worldwide Chess YouTube channel and Worldwide Chess Sport. Great content also. I think you will enjoy them. Yes, okay, bro. I see your private chat. I understand. Please don't miss that. Go check out Worldwide Chess and also Burton Ballerz YouTube channels. I think you will like them. And if you're watching, if you haven't, please make sure to like the video. That's important. That triggers the Google algorithm to push the stream to more people who will be interested in this interesting topic and very important one at that. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We're shooting for at least 1,300 subscribers today. That is to reach 1,300 subscribers today. And remember, we have the pre-game show, which starts 1 hour before kickoff and ends around 10 minutes before kickoff. And I appreciate it if you can make it there. But we're still on this one because it's a marathon show. And the question I want to ask Max, I'm starting with you. For the Ricketts family, we've heard about the issues they have, racial, the racial comments one of the brothers have made. The Islamophobia
Coach, I'm just
comments.
on a call in a minute. Coach, I'm just on a little call in a minute. Can you come back to me in about 2 minutes? Thank you.
Okay, brother. Okay. Okay, let me just start with you, Max, since you're there. Oh, I said Matt. Actually, I was talking to Matt, not Max. Sorry for my accent. Probably that gets you guys confused. So Matt, we know about the rickets issues. We know about the Pagliuca, the bribery incident talked about that took place in South Africa. And then for Bali, we've heard that he has around 150 million pounds or dollars investment in what's it called, gambling firm in Russia. Uh, Anything about the Martin Broughton group that we don't know that you can tell us about?
There was something that I did come across. I don't know the specifics with it, but with his tobacco company in one of the Asian countries.
No, it
I don't
wasn't.
know.
It was Burma.
Burma there, yeah. There was an
And yeah,
issue
then
around
because
that.
of the military there, there was action but as we've discussed this before, that was 2003, and
Yeah.
it didn't stop him getting the role at Liverpool. If there was a controversy, but obviously it got raised again, just because they wanted to pin something on every single consortium bid. So yeah, Todd Bowley had the gambling 120 million investment in a gambling firm in Russia. They went on about 2003 when he was chairman of the British American Tobacco Company, and the military based in Burma.
Yeah, so it's very historic issues,
So,
which are very
go ahead, Matt.
indirect. And I'd argue it's not really something too important to worry about, and especially as well in the case of Bowley, I don't think that's anything to massively worry about. I think when we talk about these kind of things, I think there's a difference between historical events such as what Sir Martin Broughton's had been involved in, and then blatant multiple accounts of racism within a family. For a club that has strived to fight against racism, I think it's just it for me it's a complete no go. Obviously, the government in the first place have opened Pandora's box in terms of looking at what an owner does and judging it to be ethically moral. So I think you could easily put a lot of owners and any billionaire in this kind of light in some way, because to be a billionaire, at some point you have to be a bit of a crook and mess up someone on the way. So I think unless it's something big like a big racism incident like the Ricketts have been involved in, I think we shouldn't pay too much attention, especially depending on from what sources it comes from in terms of media that would, as said before, wants to damage every single owner there, which doesn't give any benefit to Chelsea whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm going to say this again before I go to Max. In terms of, I think some people, I think just something just came to mind. I think it was somebody in the chat the other day that said something about the government wouldn't let the Ricketts win because of their, racial discrimination, or that's the Islamophobia comment made by their father. The racial, their brother using the term "you people" and all that. And I told them the government could care less about that, because to them it wasn't them. It wasn't Tom. I think Tom is the guy that's leading the consortium that wants to buy Chelsea. So to them, that wouldn't mean much to the government. Max, coming to you, I know you're well acquainted with all the issues with all the prospective new owners of the club. If you're well informed of the issues that have been raised regarding the Martin Broughton group, do you think it's serious? Do you think it's something the government would take seriously? Max, are you still there? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm here. Yeah. All four bidders have been approved by the government. Apparently, it says. So if they've been approved and been given the green light, then I don't think there will be any red flags for So it's going to be now down to Abramovich and the Rain Group to make the final decision. But yeah, I don't. The government are not going to hold anything up, I don't think, afterwards, because it's a bit pointless, all four of them doing a lot of groundwork, if at the end of the day one of them are going to be chosen only for the government to say no, we don't like this one. So that's already sorted out as far as I know.
Yeah, I think it's important to clarify, to clear that, and it's important also to understand that that's never going to be an issue, even seeing things from the perspective of the government. Pierre, I'm going to come to you. Let's just, if you can, I'd appreciate that. Tell us, what are the chances of the Martin Broughton-led consortium emerging as the new owners of Chelsea Football Club?
Depends on what their business plan is. I'd imagine that Martin Broughton is very good at doing business plans. He's held a number of top jobs as a businessman. As I say, he hasn't always been involved in sport. The only occasion has been with Liverpool, but he's held top positions at British Airways and the British American Tobacco Company. And if it comes down to proposals and business plans, and I would imagine Sebastian Coe is not too bad on the actual sports side as well, with his brief political background as well. They'll come up with a good business plan. But then Todd Boehly would also have a good business plan because he's been involved in several sporting franchises in America. So I'm not going to say he's going to major advantage, but if he has said the right things, then he's got every chance. It depends on what he's said. But the point is, we haven't seen an 8-point plan, which we've seen with the Ricketts. They've all said similar things recently about the fact that they all want Marina to stay, but whether that is just media speculation that they've all said that, but they've all said that they want her to stay in her position. They've all tried to say similar things, whether, Martin Broughton has said about putting the fans first, and Ricketts and Boehly Group have both talked about these golden ticket or gold, certainly one of those things about the fans was in the 8-point statement made from the Ricketts, and the Todd Boehly have also emphasised they want to put fans first, whatever, so they have an involvement in it. So they're all trying to say the right things, but what plans Martin Broughton has about the redevelopment of the football ground, we don't know, apart from to be shortlisted, he must have a plan. As I said before, the Ricketts and Todd Boehly groups have both been very forward. The Ricketts have talked the project manager and the architect of the plan that was approved before. The Todd Boehly are looking about developing in stages. We haven't got so much about what the Martin Broughton, but they will have ticked all the boxes with regards stage and redevelopment, investing into the club, all of that. But we just don't know what the finer details, and the finer details are going to be whether they actually get to the position, and not because they're British or any other aspects. That they're not going to be favoured because of their nationality or anything else, or who their bidders are. And unfortunately, that's probably going to be the case with the Ricketts. That even though there's this No to Ricketts campaign, I don't know if how much of a bearing that's going to have about excluding them. If they tick the boxes, I personally think it'll be a lot harder for the Ricketts to get the position. But I still think they're in the running.
Pierre, did you say that Martin Broughton, I'm butchering this guy's name, wanted to be the chairman? If he actually won the bid,
Sebastian Coe is talking about him being the best person to be the chairman. So he wants to be the face of Chelsea in terms of the bid, rather than the two backers from the US. So Martin Broughton would like to be the chairman at Chelsea. So he'll certainly take over from Bruce Buck.
Which is great, but do you think that goes against him with Bruce Buck actually being part of the process of who chooses the winner?
I don't think Bruce Buck will be there regardless who wins.
But do you think if one of the consortiums actually say, I feel that too, I thought that maybe Bruce Buck is doing what he's doing, maybe because as the last payday, if he's actually been ruining the process. But if one of the consortiums did actually say that he would stay as chairman, is that a massive plus to them and could go against, say Todd Boehly and the Ricketts? Let's say the Ricketts, even the Ricketts alone, does that give them the edge in the voting process?
Isn't that going down to conspiracies about why they were allowed to have a meeting with Paul Canaville and Bruce Buck there? The fact that he might be, again, I know that the others,
connected some dots.
Yeah, and whether Bruce Buck therefore will be retained. I don't think it's if he stayed as the chairperson at at Chelsea, and it was the Ricketts that won, for example, I think there'd be lots of, what's happened here? Has there been some sort of deal done, money involved? I would think that would make their bid even worse. That not only would there be the no to Ricketts on that basis, but that there'd been some deal struck between them and it wasn't a fair competition. I don't know.
I was trying to find it. Yeah, there was an I think a small interview, American media, where they asked the Bowleys what was their 8-point plan, and they said we were not allowed to say it till a certain point. It'd be under obligation. They weren't allowed to say their 8-point plan, and so it adds more to. And I'll try to find it as well. So this adds more to the conspiracy that we're talking about, that the Ricketts are getting really favoured. They're getting favoured treatment at the moment. And maybe because of Bruce Buck. Maybe they're the only ones that offered Bruce Buck their job.
Yeah, I think even though you could argue there's no substance to that, whatever you want to call it, I think Bruce Buck made it worse. He didn't help matters by, in fact, arranging a meeting between Paul Carnoville and then the Ricketts family, and also sat us through the meeting to me when he should have, because we heard also that all the prospective new owners complained, didn't like it. But that's, by the way, I think your argument makes sense given Bruce Buck's behavior. Now, I want to come to you with this one, Matt, because at this point, I think I'll let the people in the chat drive the conversation, but it will be better if your questions are aligned with the topic of the day. Matt, he says here, Fraser says, Summer, get a director of football who have experience in football and let Tuchel become manager and have a big say in who he wants to see at the club. I think it's something like that. He wants to become successful and better, but I know you understand the comment. But the question is, we have Petr Cech, who's, although you could argue his role at this point isn't defined. When we be better off promoting him to the role of director of football, because he has experience in football, and I think people know him all around the world. Whoever he calls on the phone and say, "This is who I am," will listen. Isn't that enough to promote him to that role? Should he decide to stay, or wouldn't that be a better option for us?
I think he's done a good job so far, but I think in the role that he kind of worked with so far, it's almost as if he's been, if you'd like to call it, a junior board member rather than in the main role, as it seems. So I would wonder, maybe potentially worry about how much experience he has in that role at the moment. Obviously, he has a wide range of football experience, but take that job on his own, I would maybe worry, would he be able to do it by himself? I would personally, I think it's always good to have more football people on the board. So I wouldn't mind having a Petr Cech still in his role that he is now, and then bring in.
What is his role now?
From what I understand, it's the way it's described as a performance director. So I think he evaluates almost the performance of the current players in the squad, some of the academy players, and he almost tries to work on with Tuchel where in terms of the performance of the team, where there is good performances, where it's lacking. He also is helping out almost with the football director roles, because the problem is we do not have a technical director, so he's almost plucking some of them roles, doing some of it but not all of it. So I would be maybe happy as if we maybe got an experienced football director in, even if it's for a short term, to almost do that role, bring Petr Cech in, allow him to learn from him, and then almost create a transition between the two where Petr Cech can then step in and then become the future director of football in his own time when he's ready. But to have more and more football people on the board would be good anyway, no matter what, whether it is just Petr Cech or whether it is Petr Cech and someone else, because yes, you need business people as well, and that's why I would maybe still keep Marina, but purely more on a business side, because I think she sometimes takes on a bit too much of the football aspect when she doesn't understand it enough. But yeah, I think having more football people on the board is also generally good. But we've got to look at the scouting system as well. I think the scouting system is somewhere where we haven't spoken enough, and I don't think do a particularly good job in some of the players as scout, and that would help with in terms of the big mistakes that we're making in terms of these expensive signings that we keep falling problems on. So I think the whole scouting system needs to be looked at to a point, and then that does come with the technical director, so we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, I know this may sound controversial, but maybe Michael Emenalo coming back, because he was the sporting director in the past. I know a lot of people are going to look at some of the failures, but what we've got to realise with Emenalo is he brought in some very good players. That he was the one who brought in the likes of Thibaut Courtois, Kevin De Bruyne, people like that, and who were then sold off, Oscar, yeah, and the Diliborgies and people like that. What people have got to understand is the reason those people were brought in is because the model that we had at the time was to just buy in a lot of these players, loan them out, and just to as another source of income for the club. So, for instance, with Diliborgi, when we bought him, we actually made a profit on the guy. You know, we bought him for, I think, 3.5. We actually ended up selling him for about 7, and we got a couple of loan fees for him as well. So everyone's going to make mistakes in the market, but I think he did a good job, and I think he got a lot of unfair criticism as well.
Can I add this misconception about everyone keeps saying we need scouting and scouting. What about all the youth players that come through the academy? That's what the scouting's for. I mean, does everyone get that's what is everyone giving them praise and understanding that the scouting is used for the players that you never heard of? Basically, you don't need a scouting team for someone like Lukaku or Werner. You know, when they're doing it right there, that you don't need a scouting team for that. You need you almost ask the board and the manager group, does this guy fit in? Is this what you want? Is this the mold that you want? Because you can see you don't need a scouting group for players like that. So to say that we need a scout team because of mistakes we made, because players actually didn't adjust well, no scouting group can predict that to know the personal life and all those aspects. The scouting group finds the players that you never heard of and finds young players that we get into the academy that you see now have made it or we sold off. So that's where the scouting team has done really well. You don't need a scouting team for Lukaku. That's basically it. Or any other expensive signing that we've done.
All right, we'll come back to that. Go ahead, Matt, if you have a response. I wanted to go to Pierre, but go ahead, Matt, if you wanted to say something.
I was going to say yes and no, because this Scott McClucken, or whoever this guy is, he's our scout. In the first team, we got scouts who scout well for our youth system, but the first team, I'm not sure they use different scouts or what, because there's a disconnect.
Are different scouts for each.
Yeah, there's a disconnect when it comes to those scouts for the first team, because Scott, just a couple of incidents with Scott McClucken. He was the one who said Tchouameni wasn't ready for Chelsea yet, where we could have got him last season for 35. Yeah, 35 minutes. Now, we may not be able to get him. He's going to be a lot more. It's going to be double the price we could have got him for last season, and also, with our ban at the minute, teams like Real Madrid and others are sniffing around for him. Even if we did buy him, like we did with the Courtois situation, we bought him and just loaned him back to Monaco for a season just to see. Everyone can see that this guy's a good player. This is the same guy who bought in Saul. And now, apparently, incidentally, we were scouting Saul for 2 years, and before we got him on loan, and he was brought in sort of on loan, and we could see how that was panned out as well. So it is important to have scouts, decent scouts, in the first team, because we don't want mistakes like what has been happening. So those are just 2 incidences. I could go through a lot more, but time permits.
Yeah, before I go to Pierre, and I think that's a great conversation. You guys brought up some great points here. Matt wants Michael Emenalo back for reasons he explained, and the club brought up the scouting. I think it was Matt that brought up the scouting issues. For some aspect, I think I'd like to say I blame the scout in the sense that I'm not saying Lukaku, I'm not by any means saying Lukaku is a bad player, because I don't think even if Roman's son wants Chelsea to sign Lukaku, the scout must have okayed it, even though maybe their opinion doesn't matter. Now, if I own the club and I have you, and I must come to you and say, I think Roman must respect the fact that there's a structure at the club. Even if he wants a player, he had to ask the scout their opinion. They must have said yes. They must have okayed it, and that's a problem. Not because Lukaku is a bad player, because he doesn't fit. He's not the profile of player that we wanted. That will solve the problem we had. They must recognize that we have to tweak something, change our identity practically, if you ask me, in my opinion, to accommodate Lukaku. But that's, by the way, Pierre, I want to come to you and ask for your opinion. But first, I want to recognize the presence of one of the most, you could argue, humble content creators in the Chelsea community, in the person of Monster FC. Brother, nice to see you here. I appreciate you finding time to say hello. That means a lot to me. And this says no club has manager anymore. Why wouldn't Czech universally, who is universally recognized, speaks a multi-lingual and was involved in many transfers? That makes sense. And big up to you, Fahim, CFC Fahim. Nice to see you. And please, if you haven't, go check out Monster CFC. Also check out CFC Fahim. Two great content creators. I think you will enjoy their content. And this is Glenn and Stubia recognizing the presence of those two the content creators, and Chomeni and going to Real Madrid. They already got Camavinga and Casemiro, but there's a possibility maybe Casemiro they might let him go and bring in Chomeni. But from for his own good, I don't think it will be a good move for him. But you never know what will happen. You just can't tell. Chomeni and going to Real Madrid. They already got. Okay, I think I've read that before. And this is just saying Modric 37, Kroos approaching late career. So why not, Fraser? I think those two guys, you can say probably Chomeni's, I think they're two different profile kind of players, if you ask me. So Fraser, your thoughts on what being discussed before I started reading the comments in the chat? Pierre.
About what? In general,
about the scouting issues and all that Matt and Max talked about.
Well, that's going to be part of whoever takes over. They're gonna probably have to look at that. I mean, I'm going to disagree with Max about the bringing back Michael, but that's. But that's obviously, people have got different viewpoints, and that's possibly because he didn't last long in his new role wherever he went to. But if we're looking for talented people, we either bring in someone new who has shown a good form of picking talented players, and especially for the first team, or we do look at someone like Patriotic, which I know that has mentioned about the fact that he was certainly instrumental in getting Mendy in, but then of course he knows about goalkeepers. But how much does he know about outfield players apart from goalkeepers? That would be my only concern. But he certainly is a Chelsea ex player and certainly keen to be part of the Chelsea infrastructure. So I don't really know what else I can say about the scouting. I don't look at it as an issue as much as other people because of the talented youth academy and stuff. But obviously I can recognise that players have been bought correctly and incorrectly. Whoever's sort of been in charge of Chelsea's transfers, there's been lots of successes and there's been lots of failures as well. I don't know if you can 100%. No one can come in and buy the right player all the time.
If you don't mind, I want to ask you. What issues do you have with Michael Manalo returning to the club? You must have something that you see that you think he didn't do right when he was still at the club.
I could understand the argument, but I didn't always approve of the players that he was responsible for. That's just my viewpoint, and and he made a decision to leave. He decided that he had reached the end of the, he wanted to move to pastures new, and in a similar way that I wouldn't want, a lot of people have clamoured about getting, the woman doctor Eva back at Stamford Bridge. I'm not particularly keen on having her back at Stamford Bridge, and in the same way that he's gone as far as I'm concerned. He left the club. He wanted to move on to other things, so I don't necessarily want him back. I haven't got any particular issues against him, but I just sort of feel that we've moved on since then, and I wouldn't specifically go back and say, yes, would you like your job back at Chelsea? That's that's just a personal viewpoint rather than having anything against him.
Yeah, I think there's context around that as well, because I think he was getting a lot of negativity around him, especially a lot of people blamed him for the sacking of Mourinho, and so just to sort of take away all that noise and everything else, he thought it was better for him to depart the club. And as I mentioned before about this advice, I know that there were a lot of unassuming guys, but we got to remember that a lot of those were for our loan army, and that was part of our business model at the time before it was all changed, and they said, oh, we can't do that, because they recognised that that's what Chelsea were sort of doing, was getting these players in, loaning them out, getting revenue, selling them on if they weren't good enough for Chelsea, but they still sold them on for a profit. So I thought we did do quite well business-wise when he was here. As you alluded to before, Pierre, there is always, no one's going to have a 100% record in the transfer market. There are going to be some misses. But I think there were a lot more hits and misses when you think of what he was trying to build in the club. Had we kept the likes of Mo Salah, for instance, Kevin De Bruyne, Oscar, Lukaku, Mark 1, and people like that, that's the sort of team that he was trying to implement at Chelsea.
Any addition from anybody on the panel? If not, we'll round up by just one final question. Declan, do you want to add anything, or Matt, do you have anything to add?
Oh, really?
Not
So I think the moving on part is the best thing. I mean, there's no need to go back, and then what's to say that he still has the same contacts and the same touch that he had back then too. The game has moved on. We're talking about a decade's passed since then.
Your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly for or against bringing back Aminala. I think there maybe are just better people that we can bring in that's new, that's not that we can bring in. There are other people out there that are very good in terms of scouting jobs, in terms of directors' jobs. So I think sometimes it's best not to harp back on the past. It's like with Eden Hazard. Just because Eden Hazard was a good player back then doesn't mean he's a good player now. So I think it's always good to look to the future rather than looking back at the past.
Yeah, that's one aspect of the whole talk about MRL that I agree with. Because the one thing Pierre alluded to also is the fact that there's nobody whoever it is will never be perfect. You make some good, some bad signings. It happens. We're humans after all. We all do make mistakes. So I'll start with you, Declan. What's your advice as a rounding up for Chelsea fans who, probably because of how things were done under Roman Abramovich, we've grown accustomed to, I still call it reckless spending because he wasn't profit focused, and maybe they've been conditioned to not look beyond things, look beyond the financial aspect of the whole, takeover process, and not understand that it's important to look at the consortium's record, the makeup, and everything, and how the possibility of them taking good care of the club. Your advice to Chelsea fans.
Well, I'm hoping, because you said that we weren't profit focused, but yet Chelsea did bring in a profit. And if you look at it this way,
but that wasn't that was the Roman's primary objective wasn't profit.
It wasn't, but it still was profitable. Roman bought the club 2 decades ago for 150 bill, put 1.5 billion, and now he's selling it to close to 4 billion. So if any of the consortiums came in and had long-term ambitions and could see that decades of being on top of the league, right? Could not on top of the league. Trophies. Look at if we compare ourselves to if you compare it to Man United, who are one of the biggest clubs in the world, and how much money revenue they brought in, that was based on two decades of success, right? And if we could continue our success on that level, and which means it may be running at a loss, but after that, the club could be worth twice as much, and we could also bring in twice as much and more. Man United bring in $1 billion annually, right? Which is more than double what we bring in. But we could get to those levels, and just on that level, just by with the same concept of what Roman was doing, or maybe and with the regulations that are coming in, you could only do so much. So it's not about. I don't. The only reason you would have to be short-term profit is if the owners want to cash in some of the money, if they want to take out some money every year, just like what's happening with Man United being a great example. They did that. The club brings in more money. Now the Glazers decide, well, we want to take out 100 billion, 50 billion every year, and and to the point now they've taken out 2 billion, which could have been spent on the club. Man United is at the Galactico level. Man United brings the money of Real Madrid. They could be the Real Madrid of England. That's how much money they make. So I'm hoping a consortium actually looks at it that way, rather than, well, we need to make money in the short term and we need to save money and build revenue. If there's no point of keeping revenue if they're not going to do anything with it. If you're just going to make revenue and say, well, let's not spend, let's just keep it in the bank and accumulate hundreds of millions of dollars, not doing anything at the club, just for, I'm actually doing quote unquote here, stability, just to be stable for some rainy day. Well, that's not going to benefit any of the players or the club or any of our success going forward. So the only way I see it is, if everything's done in a smart way, is our team right now is still in the rebuilding stage and haven't hit their peak. Once that peak hits, I want a massive investment that is going to be at a loss basis. So meaning that the club actually go more than the resources are capable of, right? And just to ensure that when our team is at their peak level, that we win all the trophies possible. And then when there's a time of saving money is when we have to rebuild the team, and our success is not going to be there. Now, I'm hoping the club actually see it that way, and not just me as a fan. And I hope they do not this smart spending and all these, playing politics just in order to keep money, in order to make profit, so they can actually put money into their American teams. So we don't want that. So we don't know what we're going to get. So I don't know what to tell the fans. I'm really just real hopeful here that we get someone that actually is looking that our success and the money they put in now is going to be, that the club's worth is going to be twofold in the next decade or two. And that's where that's where their profits come from.
Yeah, thank you very much for that great input, Matt from Worldwide Chess Pod and Worldwide Chess YouTube channel. Matt, your thoughts about that is on the Chelsea fans who not looking beyond the financial aspect of the whole thing, and what advice do you have for them?
I would just say you do need to look at all aspects of the game and all aspects of life when looking at this. But unfortunately, there's many Chelsea fans that will think different things, and you can't change their mind, which is fine, because it's good to have a diverse fan base in terms of opinion. But unfortunately, it always ends up being toxic. I would just say maybe look at it with a broad aspect and then come to a conclusion rather than just one certain aspect.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was quick and sweet, and I appreciate that. I'll let you talk about. Maybe just do it at the same time now. Tell us about Worldwide Chess Sport and Worldwide Chess YouTube channel.
Yeah, the YouTube channel is going well. We're trying to do streams nearly every day, covering as much of the owner stuff as possible, as well as match reviews, previews. The World Wide Chelsea podcast is again going sweet. We've got content on the men's game, content on the women's game. Looking to branch out and collab with different people. Next episode is going to be the 100th episode, which is quite a good milestone for us. I can't believe we've got that far, but there you go. It's due to all the great listeners to it. So anyone that's not tuned in, make sure you do tune in.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you look at the cloud, you can see, I'll make sure to provide everybody this information in the comment section. I hope I don't forget, but I usually wait for the video to be ready, because if you do that when it's still processing, it takes longer to process. I think I've observed, and I see that's what happens. You can see the cloud's Twitter handle. You can see, I'm not seeing Pierre's Twitter handle, but I think he will fix that. I'll put it there if he permits me to do so. So Pierre, coming to you, again, your thoughts on Chelsea fans, who probably, over time has been, conditioned due to how Roman Abramovich treated the club to just focus solemnly on financial aspect of the whole thing, and now have refused to look beyond finances and look into the consortiums, their makeup, and what they can do to ensure that the club will do well.
Well, that's probably why I'm not so pessimistic as some people, are not just driven by the amount of money one consortium has over another. If I talk about Roman Abramovich coming in when Claudio Ranieri was the manager at the time, it was exciting times when you bought the paper and you saw another player had joined Chelsea, Joe Cole one day, so-and-so in the next day. All these players were joining. There must have been at least 7 purchases within a couple of weeks of players joining from all sorts of places. But money was spent. But as Max has already talked about, we're not that type of club anymore. We sell players to buy players. We don't reach a stage where, even Roman Lukaku, to pay £97 million for him, we sold £100 million worth of players before we bought him. We don't buy players without the money being there from previous sales. The infrastructure's changed. There was investment in the youth academy, which has also helped on that basis to produce players. Obviously, there's the Chelsea women, which has been mentioned, and I follow the Chelsea women as I do the men's team and the youth team, etc. So when I'm looking at the people bidding it's the promises to actually keep the infrastructure and not change it so much. I want to see the Chelsea academy, the money ploughed into it, because that's not cheap. I know I heard it was around about £12 million for the actual Chelsea academy to keep that running. So I don't want that to be dropped. I don't think that Chelsea, the days of spending money and just for the sake of it, stopped a while back. The idea was to be self-sufficient. So I don't have any doom and gloom about the Chelsea team, as long as the infrastructure is roughly the same going forwards, that there's not too many changes there, and the main development is the actual redevelopment of Stamford Bridge to hold a higher capacity. Then of course we're going to generate more revenue from there. So I don't see any problem. The new owners will have a bit of leeway anyway with financial fair play, because they'll be allowed to spend. In their first year, they'll be able to spend a bit more. So if they do want to buy 1 or 2 of those A-list type players that they've been highlighting, doesn't matter which one it is. If that's what they want to do, bring in 1 top player or 2 top players, I wouldn't be against that. But I don't think, my perspective, as long as they don't change the current model, which I think is actually successful, that is what I'm looking for, and not just who is the richest backers of which consortium.
I've heard this phrase. I keep hearing the phrase all the time: "We buy to sell." But I just want to clear up. What are we buying to sell for exactly? Just because we can't afford it, or is it the financial fair play? Because I've always looked at the financial fair play.
It's a financial fair play. Yeah.
So it's just to increase our spending. Yeah, because I think some people have a misconception when they hear it, as if we need to buy to recoup money, but people don't I think people might not see that it's just to expend so we can spend more money. We sell so we can spend more money, not
Yeah,
that
so,
we need money to recruit
Yeah.
money.
and some
Yeah,
of
and there's
that,
two aspects to it as well. That's the money aspect as well as the squad aspect. Because remember, you can only register X amount of players in your team as well. You can only have 17 non-homegrown players, so you'll have to get rid of one to bring in another one in. So there's that aspect as well, but it's mainly to do with the financials.
All right. Thank you. With that, I'm going to Max next. Max, I know you know the question already. The Chelsea
Yeah.
fans, how they see the whole process, not looking beyond the financial aspect of the whole thing, and comparing the prospective new owners and then favoring the ones they see as the richest groups. Your thoughts on the whole thing, and what advice do you have for the Chelsea fans?
Yeah. So as Pierre said before, what I mentioned earlier is that years ago when Abramovich first came, we were playing catch up. Manchester United and Liverpool, not Arsenal, the teams like that. They were getting more money just solely because of the TV money and everything else. So they were on a financial footing. So what Roman had to do, he had to spend a big so that we can be competing. When we became competitive, I think it was after about his second or third season, we were then competitive. So the business model changed. We did get one or two vanity signings now and again with the Torres one and Shevchenko, but most of the time it was kind of balancing the books. And money's not everything because declared. Sorry, I'm going to disagree with you a couple of things of what you said about the Glazers.
Right.
Manchester United are a badly run club. It's not that they don't spend money; they spend an awful lot of money. They spend 85 million on Maguire. They spend.
I wasn't praising their spending. If that's what you took.
No. They do spend, but it's not.
Oh yeah, but they don't spend to what they bring in. So
I think in terms of go ahead. In terms of player purchases, they didn't just spend to solve the problem the squad has.
No. They spend to keep the fans happy, but they have taken out money out of the club. So the money brings in 1 billion annually. They got the highest wage bill. They bring in statement signings. Their signings aren't necessarily to address positions. They take into fact that how they can market that player and what the fans think of that player, and so they make all these statement signings, and the fans. And as soon as every season you see they go against, you see the protests against them, and then they just buy players, and the protest goes down, and it's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
but they still take out money.
That's the point I'm trying to make, though. They do spend an awful lot of money, but not wisely. And if you look at Everton are 300 million in debt because they were spending, but again, not wisely. So I don't want us to just start throwing money here, there, and everywhere. So for me,
it depends how you look at it, Max. That wisely, as in, for me, wisely to keep the fans off your back is maybe wise enough.
No, that's what I'm saying. So for me, what the important thing is when we're bringing in somebody, it's so that they can have, a proper business plan. They're not going to, we see the positions that we need money spent on. Okay, Chelsea fans saying we're badly in need of the defensive midfielder. Do your research, get the best defensive midfielder who can do a job to make Chelsea remain competitive. Do we need
agree, Max.
a goal scoring?
I didn't go down that road. I think the point I was trying to make with bringing the comparison with the Glazers were not just Glazers, Man United alone. If Man United were to be put on sale, Man United would be the most expensive club in the world. Man United are probably one of the biggest clubs in the world. We can say that, and that didn't just happen. That happened from decades of being successful, right? And that's my comparison was how much money they actually bring in, not how they spend it. They probably the way they spend money is almost like they listen to fans. You know what I mean? They make signings that will make fans happy. They bring Ollie in just to calm down the fans. Their objective to their signings and how they spend money are very different. It's almost like, let's just keep these people off our back while we take out money that they don't see. But how much money they bring in? Let me tell you this, if Roman had that type of money, right? If Chelsea were bringing in that money under Roman, right? we would be run like Real Madrid. We would be a Galactico. That's what I'm saying. So to the success down the line, and if imagine now we've had 2 decades of success, and Chelsea we're at. Imagine 2 decades more. We would be on such a level worldwide on fans. Every new fan that comes in will see Chelsea are one of the biggest clubs, and they become a blue, and then you start to become one of the biggest clubs in the world and the biggest fan base, and that's when you bring in so much more money. And with that, and with FFP and stuff, that's how you would get to be one of the biggest spending clubs. And maybe our new consortium group actually sees it that way. Maybe they see we're going to spend so much money in the first decade, right? That once we bring so much money in is when we can bring in stability. Maybe that's a long-term plan that one of them look at. But if any of them start to think that we're going to start cutting back from day one, then we're going to maybe slowly digress to an Arsenal type.
Yeah, but I don't see
position.
that happening. So
Yeah, so Max, go ahead with your thoughts and your advice for the Chelsea fans.
Yeah, so for me, the thing is, we need to just trust the process, really, because for me, it's not who's the richest; it's who's going to be the best and buying wisely. We don't need to spend big; we need to spend wise, as I said before. That's the key: getting in the right players. And the other thing that I want to see from our investors is two things that will enable us to become bigger and more, bring in more revenue to the club. Is the ground. Obviously the ground improvements were put on hold because of what happened with Roman Abramovich. But if we can get even 60,000, I know there's lots of people are saying, okay, some clubs are now moving on to 70,000 or whatever. Chelsea, where we are, the real estate and the position we are in London, we are the only club actually in the centre of London. Okay, so we've got a good attraction for tourists coming in, and we got a rich fan base. We got people who can spend a lot of money on a match day experience. So if we can get a lot more of the corporate boxes in as well, then there's a lot of money to be made through that avenue. And commercially, I don't think we are as good commercially as some of the other clubs have been commercially. So we can tap into different markets, like the American market, if we get one of the Americans. And there's other markets we can get for sponsorship deals where we can generate revenue that way as well. So if we can, because I think I was reading a report where they said Chelsea have kind of stagnated when it comes to revenue growth with sponsorship deals, etc. We're kind of stagnated. Right? Even the likes of Tottenham and Arsenal have been going in an upward trajectory. We have sort of gone on a sort of a vertical line. So we need to improve in that aspect as well. So the board, as I said before, are going to be choosing, I think, the right people. We should forget all the noise that we're hearing in the media and the press, because there's a lot of PR going about at the moment. And so 1 minute this bid looks good, next minute that bid looks good. I was just reading something by Pagliuca. What's his name? Is that how you pronounce his name?
I'm not sure. Is it correct, Pagliuca?
Pagliuca. He's put out a statement just a couple of hours ago, because he said he's been keeping quiet at the time. He's willing to relinquish his shares in Atalanta, and he's put out his kind of plan.
Oh, he's done that already?
Yeah. If you look on, there's a statement that he's put out today.
Wow, that's a huge update.
Or if you want, you can try and bring it up before I'm not sure what time you're finishing. You can try and bring that up. I think is it Simon Phillips or one of those guys who tweeted it? So, so if I'll try and find it. So if you put it up, this statement, you can read it afterwards. So again, he's saying the right things as well. So quite a lot of them are saying the right things. And he's also said actions speak louder than words, which I mentioned. I'm not sure if he was watching the stream earlier, but he came out with the actions speak louder than words statement as well. So I'm just hoping that, as I said, we make the right decision and keep the club going, because we don't need big investment. We just need smart investment to remain at the top and competing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Max. That's a good advice towards. Our most important thing is that I think those that will help us make the final decision will make sure that the club is handed over to a good owner.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
were you still saying something, Matt?
If you go to Nizar Cancella's Twitter, he's got it
Okay,
on
I'll
there.
see
It was
that.
a couple of hours ago. So
Okay,
yeah.
that's probably will help us with the discussion tomorrow, and I appreciate you for that update. So he's relinquished that 55% of his share in
He's willing to do that, yeah. If
Oh, he's willing to. He hasn't done so. But
no, he's willing to do that if he's the
Okay.
preferred bidder. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that update there. Romano tried, but it's a Batista Power Stadium. Yeah, we know about that story, and it didn't work out. So with that, I want to say thank you to Matt for Matt, go ahead. You haven't told us anything about Burton Ballerz YouTube channel. Matt.
Yeah, Burton Ballerz. Yeah. Yes, yeah, Burton Ballerz football channels. It's been going for a couple of years now, and sometimes I do it with one of my sons. It started off as a channel because I don't know what I'd done in a former life, but one of my sons unfortunately has gone over to the dark side and decided to become an Arsenal supporter. I was thinking of banishing him from the house, but my wife spoke against it. So we started off calling ourselves Football Family Feuds and arguing about the two different teams, and then we went our separate ways, and then became Burton Ballerz, with me and my sensible son. Sometimes we talk football, and I talk to him about the history. During the videos, we sort of speak about Chelsea in the past. So if anyone doesn't know about Chelsea before, then come and watch my channel because you get all the historic information. I'm also here to dispel all the myths about how Chelsea were not a big club before Roman Abramovich took over. So I try and challenge some people who do not know a lot about football and, follow people like sheep. So if you want an alternative view on Chelsea, then go subscribe to Burton Ballerz, and you'll enjoy the content. Some of it's light-hearted as well. We don't take ourselves seriously, so yeah, it's a decent watch.
Yes, people, don't forget to go check out Burton Ballerz YouTube channel, Worldwide Chelsea, Worldwide Chelsea YouTube channel, and don't forget to follow Declad on Twitter, and also follow Max on Twitter. And I will speak with Pierre in private if he wants me to share his Twitter handle. I would do so that you can go follow him. And Pierre, I cannot thank you enough for finding the time to join today. Your inputs have been brilliant, and I must let you know you're such an eloquent speaker, and I enjoy listening to you. The same as Max, I like to listen to you talk football, and I like to listen to Matt J. Bowles talk football. Same thing as Declad, his energy, everything. I appreciate you all. You made it a great show. And for those in the chat, from the queen of all streams, Street Beer herself, to Chichi as one of the queens of Chelsea Perspective, Just Viola, one of the queens of Chelsea Perspective, Mikhail, everybody, Fraser, or with the great input there in the chat. And truly also, I appreciate you all. And if I miss your name, I'm only human. Please, my apologies to you. And with that, we've come to the end of today's Blue Morning Show. I hope to see you all as we during the pregame show before the Real Madrid game. It is always good because there we talk about the lineup and debate whether TyTalkzCFC has made the best selection to help us win the game. And with that, I say, see you all in the pregame show. If not, see you all tomorrow for another Blue Morning Show. God bless us all, and bye.
Okay. Thanks for having us.